Chapter 375. D***eminent, D***eminent. Chu Kuangren, how dare you destroy my spiritual thought clone? Just you wait, I'll destroy the Black Heaven sect. Sage ruler Zhang Guang growled. However, a voice suddenly rang out in the hall. Calm down. It was an old voice. Upon hearing that voice, the furious sage ruler Zhang Guang calmed himself down. Forefather, why are you awake? He was confused. After all, the forefathers of the unknown lands had lived for countless years. In order to delay their heavenly deterioration stage 5, most of them were in hibernation and would not show themselves easily. Yet now, the forefather had awakened to stop him. What was going on? A few days ago, I was awakened by a powerful aura from the outer seas. I'm not the only one who sensed it. I'm afraid some of the other old folk sensed it too. That aura was too terrifying. Upon hearing that, sage ruler Zhang Guang could not help but shudder. What kind of existence could make the forefather feel so terrified? Suddenly, he thought of something. It's the headless lady. That's right, the old voice said. But what does that have to do with you stopping me from seeking revenge on the Black Heaven sect? Sage ruler Zhang Guang asked curiously. When my spiritual thought was roaming the heavens, I learned a lot about Chu Kuangren. One of the things I learned was that not long ago, he went to the scaled tribe in the deep sea and caused a huge ruckus there. He even fought someone from the bottomless chasm. Besides that, after your spiritual thought was severed, he told you to go and see what happened to the bottomless chasm. This is the reason why I stopped you. Please enlighten me, forefather. A few days ago, I received news that the headless lady had caused a huge ruckus in the bottomless chasm. Out of the 7 chasm dwellers, 4 of them were killed. In the end, the headless lady left, leaving behind a devastated bottomless chasm. That was the day Chu Kuangren wreaked havoc in the scaled tribe, the old voice said. Upon hearing that, how could Elder Zhang Guang not know what his forefather was trying to say? His eyes widened as he said in shock, Forefather, are you saying that Chu Kuangren is in contact with the headless lady, and that the headless lady is helping Chu Kuangren against the bottomless chasm? How is that possible? According to the records, the headless lady's origins are a mystery. I've never heard of her being associated with anyone, so how could she possibly help Chu Kuangren fight against the bottomless chasm? The old voice said, no matter what happened, it's unwise to provoke Chu Kuangren just for a spiritual thought clone. Forefather, could this be a coincidence? Is Chu Kuangren trying to scare us with this? Sage ruler Zhang Guang guessed. As long as there's a chance, you can't let the bottomless chasm happen in the heavenly golden palace. Otherwise, you'll be the greatest sinner of the heavenly golden palace. The old voice said sternly. Yes. Sage King Zhang Guang nodded reluctantly. The old voice did not move again, as if it had already left. Sage King Zhang Guang stood at the same spot for a while before taking out a communication compass. Third Elder, find all the records about the headless woman in the library and send them to my room. His eyes flashed with an obscure light. If we don't get rid of Chu Kuangren, the others will never have a chance to become emperors. The heavenly golden palace will never have the opportunity to become emperors. Whether it's to avenge my clone or for the opportunity to become emperors, Chu Kuangren must not be allowed to live. But first, we must find a way to deal with this headless lady, Black Warrior Domain, Empyrean Peak. The battle between the Empyrean walkers had come to an end. It ended with Chu Kuangren's victory. Even a peerless physique like the heavenly golden imperial physique was defeated by his opponent in one move. His combat strength was terrifying. This battle had confirmed Chu Kuangren's status among the younger generation. Even the Empyrean walkers were no match for him. After the battle, Chu Kuangren found Ethereal Rapture's Empyrean walker, Shuezheng, who was about to leave the Empyrean Peak. It was not difficult to tell from Shuezheng's dejected expression that this battle had dealt a heavy blow to him. As an Empyrean walker, he had always been very confident in his own abilities. However, today's battle had shown him the difference between them, the difference between heaven and earth. Compared to Chu Kuangren, an Empyrean walker like him was not even worth mentioning. "Brother Shui, please wait." At that moment, Chu Kuangren's voice came from behind Shui Zheng. He turned around and looked at him curiously. "Why? Is there anything else, Brother Chu? I'd like to pay a visit to ethereal rapture. Please lead the way, Brother Shui." Pay a visit to ethereal rapture? Shui Zheng was stunned for a moment before he recalled some of the rumors about Chu Kuangren. His expression suddenly froze as he said, "Brother Chu, I admit that I lost to you because my skills are inferior, but why must you kill me? Besides, the ethereal rapture is not a place where you can do whatever you want." Chu Kuangren was stunned. Why is Shui Zheng so agitated all of a sudden? "I'm just going to pay a visit, isn't that all? Is the ethereal rapture too much? Also, what did he mean by killing me?" Chu Kuangren made it sound like he was going to pick a fight with him. "Brother Shui, I'm just going to pay a visit. You don't have to go that far, do you?" "Of course not. Don't think that I don't know what you're implying. The Murong clan, the Shang clan, and the Sky Emperor Palace have all met bad ends when you visited them." Chu Kuangren finally understood. However, he felt that he was innocent. After all, was he really to be blamed for all of this? If it were not for those people looking for trouble, would he have gone on a killing spree? "Brother Shui, don't worry. I'm only going to ethereal rapture to exchange for the celestial chalcedony. I have no intention of looking for trouble," Chu Kuangren said solemnly. Besides defeating Shui Zheng today, he did not have any grudges against ethereal rapture. He did not believe that he would cause any more trouble this time. Shui Zheng looked at Chu Kuangren suspiciously and said, "This is a serious matter. I'll have to report this to the sect leader." "Of course," Chu Kuangren replied. Not long after, Shui Zheng ended his call with ethereal rapture's sect leader. He looked at Chu Kuangren and said, "The sect leader said that I can bring you to ethereal rapture." "Thank you." Chu Kuangren breathed a sigh of relief. If ethereal rapture refused to let him go, he did not know where else he could find the celestial chalcedony. Although he could still set up the astonishing cloud of seas formation with some low-tier celestial chalcedony, its power would be greatly reduced. If he wanted to do it, he must do his best. Shui Zheng brought Chu Kuangren to ethereal rapture. "Brother Chu, what do you need this celestial chalcedony for?" Shui Zheng asked curiously along the way. Aside from being useful to some cultivators who cultivated special techniques, the celestial chalcedony was no different from normal soul stones and spiritual essences. The celestial chalcedony is the best material for setting up a formation. "I'm sure you know this, Brother Shui," Chu Kuangren said. "Oh, Brother Chu, you want to use it to set up a formation?" "Yes." Chu Kuangren nodded. Of course, he would not divulge the details of the formation. Shui Zheng did not probe further. "Brother Chu, are you not afraid that the Heavenly Golden Palace will cause trouble for the Black Heaven sect if you threaten them?" Shui Zheng changed the topic. "How dare they?" Chu Kuangren snorted, his eyes filled with coldness. Chapter 376. How dare they? Chu Kuangren yelled with a cold glare in his eyes. Shui Zheng's heart skipped a beat when he saw that. Did Chu Kuangren really have the ability to deal with the unknown lands? "My apologies, I forgot my manners." Chu Kuangren retracted his cold gaze and smiled. He was extremely good-looking, and his smile was like a spring breeze. Seeing this, Shui Zheng's heart relaxed, and he also slowly relaxed. "Brother Chu, let's continue our journey." "All right." Chu Kuangren nodded. He secretly gave himself a thumbs up. It seemed like he had successfully scared Shui Zheng. He would definitely report this to the ethereal sect, and by then, they would be wary of him. Did the Black Heaven sect, or rather, Chu Kuangren, have the ability to deal with the unknown lands? To be honest, it was extremely difficult. No one knew for sure how powerful the unknown lands were, but one thing was for sure, they were definitely much stronger than any sage orthodoxy that Chu Kuangren had ever seen before. Much, much stronger. The Black Heaven sect had improved tremendously in the past few years, but compared to the unknown lands that had tens or even hundreds of thousands of years of history, there was still a gap. It was impossible to fight them head-on. Chu Kuangren's decision to kill great sage ruler Zhang Guang's spiritual thought clone and threaten the heavenly golden palace was a gamble. His biggest trump card was the Headless Lady. By revealing that he was somehow related to the Headless Lady, he was betting that the heavenly golden palace would be wary of the Headless Lady and would not dare to act rashly. That way, he could buy time for the Black Heaven sect to improve its strength. Under those circumstances, that was the only thing he could do. If he showed any signs of fear or hesitation, he had every reason to believe that the heavenly golden palace and the other unknown lands would come after him and the Black Heaven sect. That was because Chu Kuangren's existence had already prevented the unknown lands from fighting for the Emperor Ascension opportunity. I'm now at the heart of the struggle. I could be the target of everyone at any time. Chu Kuangren looked into the distant sky with a deep gaze. To outsiders, he was glorious and majestic. However, Chu Kuangren knew very well that he was treading on thin ice. If he was not careful, he and the Black Heaven sect would be doomed. However, he had no other way out. Since that was the case, he might as well press forward and properly wrestle with these unknown lands. Soon, Chu Kuangren followed Shui Zheng to a mountain peak. Ethereal Rapture was, in fact, a secret realm. Furthermore, it was a secret realm that was constantly on the move, making it hard to locate. Only the disciples of Ethereal Rapture had some sort of searching method. Open. Shui Zheng took out a jade medallion and threw it into the air. The jade medallion shone brightly and opened up a spatial tunnel. Fellow Daoist Chu, please. Please. The two of them stepped into the spatial tunnel and arrived at the Ethereal Rapture. As soon as he entered, he saw a mountain range shrouded in clouds and mist. The mountain range was filled with exotic flowers and plants, as well as rare birds and beasts. So this is the Ethereal Rapture. It's like a paradise indeed. Chu Kuangren exclaimed. You flatter me, fellow Daoist Chu. Shui Zheng smiled. After that, he brought Chu Kuangren to the main peak of Ethereal Rapture. Along the way, they met quite a few Ethereal Rapture disciples. Through Chu Kuangren's observation, he realized that each and every one of these Ethereal Rapture disciples were top-notch geniuses. Any one of them could easily become a true disciple or even a Daoist of a sage orthodoxy in the outside world. Senior Shui. A female disciple walked up and bowed at Shui Zheng. She looked at Chu Kuangren curiously. As the Empyrean Walker of Ethereal Rapture, Shui Zheng was highly respected among the disciples. Hence, it was only natural for her to be curious when she saw that he had brought an outsider back. Senior Shui, who is this Daoist brother? The female disciple looked at Chu Kuangren with a dazed look in her eyes. She felt that the man in front of her was extraordinarily handsome. He was much more handsome than everyone she had ever met, including her senior brother Shui Zheng. My name is Chu Kuangren. Nice to meet you. Greetings, Brother Chu. My name is Kai Yun. Are you here at Ethereal Rapture as a guest, Brother Chu? The female disciple, Kai Yun, said enthusiastically. More or less. In that case, Brother Chu, you should stay for a few more days. There are many fun places in Ethereal Rapture. I'll bring you around when the time comes. I'll be troubling you then. Beside her, Shui Zheng could not help but twitch his mouth. He felt that he, the true elder senior brother of Ethereal Rapture, was being ignored. He glanced at Chu Kuangren with a sour feeling in his heart. Isn't he just slightly more handsome than me? Is there a need to be so enthusiastic about him? Kai Yun was not the only one. Shuizheng had also noticed that there were quite a number of disciples around them. Moreover, most of them were female cultivators. Each and every one of them was staring at Chu Kuangren with glowing eyes. Some of them were even salivating. Those who did not know better would have thought that they were a pack of starving wolves that had just seen a lamb. Is there such a good-looking man in this world? I thought senior brother Shuizheng was already a handsome man. I can't believe there's someone so much better looking than him in this world. Who is he? Ethereal Rapture hasn't had any guests for so many years. Could he be a new disciple that senior brother Shui brought back? Is that true? That's great. If he really is our junior brother, I'll definitely guide him in his cultivation every day. The male cultivators were a little jealous at the sight of the enthusiastic female cultivators. They looked at Chu Kuangren with hostility in their eyes. However, as they looked at him, they were convinced. F***ck, I can't believe there's such a good-looking man in this world. If I were a girl, I'd sleep with him too. Actually, I think it doesn't matter if he's a guy or a girl. I just like good-looking men. Scram. When Shuizheng heard the disciples' discussions, he felt that Chu Kuangren's looks were even more terrifying than his cultivation level. Alright, Kai Yun, this is the sect leader's guest. We still need to meet the sect leader, so I'll talk to you later. Shuizheng said. The sect leader's guest? Kai Yun was stunned. Shouldn't the sect leader's guests be sages? They're all so old after all. How did such a young and good-looking man get involved with an old man like the sect leader? Of course, she did not dare to say that out loud. While her thoughts were running wild, Shuizheng had already left with Chu Kuangren and arrived at a palace at the top of the mountain. There were a few elders in the palace. The one in the middle was dressed in a blue and white Daoist robe and held a horsetail whisk in his hand. That person was the Ethereal Rapture's sect leader, Master Daoist Yuntao. His cultivation level was the same as Sage Ruler Zhang Guang, a sage ruler. Upon seeing Chu Kuangren, Master Daoist Yuntao's eyes lit up and he smiled. Junior Chu, your presence brings light to the Ethereal Rapture. The rest of the elders looked at Chu Kuangren with different expressions on their faces. In fact, they had no enmity with Chu Kuangren. However, his existence had affected the various unknown lands' fight for the Emperor's opportunity, so they did not have a good impression of Chu Kuangren. However, since Chu Kuangren did not do anything out of line during his visit to the Ethereal Rapture, they could not do anything to him. Greetings, Brother Yuntao. Chu Kuangren smiled. Chapter 377. Greetings, Brother Yuntao. Chu Kuangren smiled. Master Daoist Yuntao and the other elders frowned when they heard how he addressed Chu Kuangren. The other elders were even more displeased with Chu Kuangren now. That was because Chu Kuangren was only a sage. Master Daoist Yuntao, on the other hand, was a sage ruler. Even if Chu Kuangren lived for a few hundred more years, he would only be a fraction of Master Daoist Yuntao's age. How could they talk to each other as peers? How dare Chu Kuangren? Humph, how dare you address me as a fellow Daoist? How rude. One of the elders could not help but scoff. Chu Kuangren glanced at him. What's wrong? Brother Yuntao is the leader of Ethereal Rapture, and I'm the Black Heaven sect's leader. Is there anything wrong with me addressing him as a fellow Daoist? Do you think that the Black Heaven sect is inferior to Ethereal Rapture? He could tell that these people did not like him anyway. Naturally, he would not try to please them. Since they were already displeased, he did not mind making them hate him even more. The elder was speechless when he heard what Chu Kuangren said. He could not find any words to refute Chu Kuangren's words. How rude. The elder could not find any words to refute Chu Kuangren. Master Daoist Yuntao said, Third elder, please don't be rude in front of our esteemed guest. Brother Chu is right. We both lead the same orthodoxy, so it's not wrong for us to talk to each other as peers. He automatically changed the way he addressed Junior Chu to Brother Chu. Since he had said so, the other elders could not say anything even if they had any opinions. Alright, enough with the pleasantries. The main reason I came to ethereal rapture this time is to exchange for the celestial chalcedony. What do you think, Brother Yuntao? Chu Kuangren went straight to the point. It's not difficult to get the celestial chalcedony, but what do you want to exchange with us, Brother Chu? Master Daoist Yuntao asked. 200 million top-tier soul stones and a kilogram of top-tier celestial chalcedony. Chu Kuangren casually stated his terms. Before he came, Chu Kuangren had done some research. According to the market price, a kilogram of top-tier celestial chalcedony was worth 100,000 top-tier soul stones. The price he offered was already twice the market price. Heh, Daoist Chu, do you think that ethereal rapture is lacking in spirit stones? Daoist Yuntao smiled faintly. What does ethereal rapture want? Your monarch art. Before Master Daoist Yuntao could finish his sentence, Chu Kuangren had already turned around and left. Daoist Yuntao did not expect the other party to make such a move and was momentarily stunned. It was only when the other party reached the door that he spoke up to stop him. Well, Daoist Chu, please wait a moment. We're doing business after all. We can talk later. Business is all about sincerity. However, I don't see any sincerity from the ethereal rapture. You want to exchange 500 kilograms of holy chalcedony for an emperor art? This is the biggest joke in the world. How precious was an emperor technique? Apart from the unknown lands, all the sage orthodoxies in the outside world might not even have a complete monarch art. Such a technique was a priceless treasure. Not to mention 1,000 caddies of celestial crystal chalcedony, even 10,000 caddies or 100,000 caddies would not be enough. Heh, I was just joking. Fellow Chu, please don't be angry. Master Daoist Yuntao laughed. This was an opportunity to extort Chu Kuangren, so how could he let it go so easily? Of course, he also knew that asking for an emperor art was too much. However, even if they did not want an emperor art, they did not lack anything else. How about this, 1 billion top-tier soul stones? After much deliberation, Master Daoist Yuntao decided to ask for soul stones. After all, soul stones were the currency of Firmament Star. No matter how much they had, it would not be a burden. Ethereal rapture did not lack anything else either. The few things that Chu Kuangren had on him that they could not afford to exchange for a few kilograms of holy chalcedony, and Chu Kuangren would not do it either. 1 billion top-tier soul stones and 500 kilograms of top-tier celestial chalcedony. Master Daoist Yuntao, you sure have a good plan. Do you really think the Black Heaven sect's soul stones come from nowhere? Chu Kuangren snorted coldly. The price was 10 times higher than the market price. That was daylight robbery. Brother Chu, this is the best we can do. If you don't want to trade, you may leave. However, it's not easy to find such celestial chalcedony in Firmament Star, Master Daoist Yuntao said calmly. A rare commodity worth hoarding. That was Master Daoist Yuntao's confidence. Chu Kuangren gritted his teeth and cursed the old man in his heart. However, the celestial chalcedony was very important to him as it was an important material for the astonishing cloud of seas formation. He could not afford to lose it. It was not impossible for him to trade for it with an emperor technique. Chu Kuangren's departure earlier was just a show. Master Daoist Yuntao had greatly underestimated the importance of the celestial chalcedony to him. Fine, 1 billion it is. Chu Kuangren gritted his teeth and pretended to be angry. Using 1 billion soul stones was still better than exchanging an emperor technique. He could always look for a few orthodoxies in the future if he had the chance. Heh, alright then. I'll get someone to get it for you. Master Daoist Yuntao said. A moment later, a disciple came to report. Sect leader, we only have less than 100 kilograms of top-tier celestial chalcedony left. Chu Kuangren's expression turned cold when he heard that. His eyes flashed and the descendant self-sword at his waist could not help but tremble. A terrifying sword-based Daoist rhyme filled the surroundings. Some of the elders were speechless. The disciple who came to report had cold sweat dripping from his forehead. He looked at the handsome Chu Kuangren with fear in his eyes. Is ethereal rapture messing with me? Chu Kuangren sneered. Brother Chu, please calm down. Master Daoist Yuntao quickly said before he looked at the disciple and asked, why are there less than 100 kilograms of top-tier celestial chalcedony left? The disciple trembled and said, Sect leader, the Daoists have been cultivating diligently recently, so the celestial chalcedony has been used up quite quickly. The unknown lands appeared one after another, and they were about to completely emerge into the world. To prepare themselves, the disciples of the orthodoxies were also working hard in their cultivation. As an important strategic resource of ethereal rapture, the celestial chalcedony was used by every disciple, so it was used up very quickly. I see. Master Daoist Yuntao said in realization. He then looked at Chu Kuangren and apologized, Brother Chu, I'm sorry. I didn't expect this to happen. Chu Kuangren only stared at him coldly. It was as if he was saying, keep acting, keep acting. As the leader of ethereal rapture, how could you not know about these things? It was obvious that Chu Kuangren was putting on a show for him. Chu Kuangren wanted to see how Master Daoist Yuntao was going to clean up this mess. Since he could not get his hands on the goods, he had to get those billion soul stones back no matter what. Master Daoist Yuntao did not want to start a war with him over this. How about this? Although the celestial chalcedony in our storage is gone, there's a chalcedony mineral vein in ethereal rapture. There's a large amount of unmined celestial chalcedony there, let alone top-tier ones. As an apology, Brother Chu, feel free to take a few kilograms of raw stones. No matter what kind of celestial chalcedony you find, it'll all belong to you. What do you think? Master Daoist Yuntao smiled. Chu Kuangren's heart skipped a beat when he heard that. Raw stones? Sounds good. Chapter 378. Since the celestial chalcedony in the ethereal rapture was almost depleted, Master Daoist Yuntao decided to bring Chu Kuangren to retrieve the ores. Soon, they arrived at a mine. Here, there were many disciples who were hard at work. Mining ores, cutting stones, sect leader. An elder in charge of mining ores walked up. A strange look flashed across Chu Kuangren's eyes when he saw that person. Isn't this the first city's third prefect? I didn't expect to see you here. This elder from ethereal rapture was none other than the first city's third prefect. It's you, Chu Kuangren. The third prefect was very surprised to see Chu Kuangren. He didn't expect to meet him here. You two know each other? Daoist Yuntao asked curiously. Sort of. Chu Kuangren nodded slightly. Heh, what a coincidence. The 12th elder just joined ethereal rapture not long ago. He obtained a legacy of ethereal rapture from the outside world and found us not long ago. Daoist Yuntao smiled. Ethereal rapture had always had Empyrean walkers roaming the outside world, but they were not as ostentatious as the current generation. Most of them were not well known, and their main purpose was to understand the situation in the outside world or to find some good seedlings to groom. Therefore, they would sometimes accidentally leave behind some inheritances in the outside world. The third prefect had obtained such an inheritance. He had been searching for the ethereal rapture for many years. Finally, with the clues provided by the Sky Emperor Palace, he managed to find it and successfully join it. Yes, 12th Elder. Daoist Chu is now a guest of ethereal rapture. I brought him here to collect some ores. Where are the ores that have been mined? Daoist Yuntao asked with a faint smile. Please follow me. The third prefect brought them to a place where countless raw stones were piled up. A dense wave of spiritual energy spread from the raw stones. Daoist Yuntao smiled and said, "Fellow Daoist Chu, please choose." There was a playful look in his eyes. "Fellow Daoist Yuntao, how many do you want me to choose? How about this? It's our ethereal rapture's mistake this time. Since Daoist Chu wants 500 kilograms of high-grade celestial chalcedony, let's exchange it for 5,000 kilograms of raw stones. The rest will be our compensation." Upon hearing that, Chu Quanren could not help but sneer. It sounded like 10,000 jin was much more than 1,000 jin. But who knew if the celestial crystal chalcedony in a raw stone was a low-grade or high-grade one? It might even be a piece of useless rock. This was a gamble of luck. Moreover, Chu Quanren had just arrived, so he had no idea how good or bad these ores were. Who knew what the probability of obtaining a top-tier celestial chalcedony was? However, he didn't care about any of this. Because he could cheat. 5,000 kilograms of raw stone. This is what fellow Yuntao said. No matter whether the celestial chalcedony is good or bad, it belongs to me. Of course. Daoist Yuntao nodded. He was well aware of the probability of obtaining a high-grade celestial chalcedony. Not to mention 10,000 kilograms of raw ores, even 100 kilograms might not be able to obtain 100 kilograms of high-grade celestial chalcedony. In his opinion, Chu Quanren was bound to suffer this loss. Beside him, the third prefect was also looking at Chu Quanren playfully. Chu Quanren activated his treasure locating skill. Immediately, all kinds of information about the primordial stones came back. Suddenly, he had an idea. Looking at the mine in the distance, he said, "I want to enter the mine and pick a few raw stones." Sure. Daoist Yuntao did not stop him. In his opinion, there was no difference between the two. Then, Chu Quanren's figure turned into a stream of light and entered the mine. Not long after, he walked out with a pile of ores. In addition, he chose a few thousand kilograms from the pile of ores that weighed several billion kilograms. Alright, this is it. Chu Quanren placed the 5,000 kilograms of raw stones into his yin and yang ring. "Hey, Brother Chu, don't tell me you don't understand the stones. When we get back, I'll get someone to do it. Brother Chu, you might not know this, but these celestial chalcedonies require a special method to be cut. Otherwise, the chalcedony will be easily damaged." Daoist Yuntao said. It was obvious that he wanted Chu Quanren to cut the stones on the spot and see how he would suffer this loss. If that's the case, go ahead. Chu Quanren took out the raw stone again. Soon, someone came to help him cut the stones. "Brother Chu, we've agreed that no matter whether the chalcedony is good or bad, you can't go back on your word. We won't return the 1 billion soul stones," Daoist Yuntao said. Of course. Chu Quanren looked at a raw stone that was peeling off and said. A burst of white light bloomed. A rich and strange spiritual qi rippled. He saw that the rough surface layer of the ore had been removed, revealing a piece of celestial chalcedony that was as smooth as jade. Upon seeing this chalcedony, Daoist Yuntao and the others were shocked. This is an exquisite tier celestial chalcedony? Exquisite tier celestial chalcedony was even rarer than top tier celestial chalcedony. One might not even find 1 kilogram of it in 100,000 kilograms. However, Chu Quanren's first raw stone yielded such an exquisite tier chalcedony. From the looks of it, it must be at least 5 kilograms. Is this guy's luck that good? Daoist Yuntao and the third prefect looked at Chu Quanren strangely. The stone cutting continued. Exquisite tier chalcedony, exquisite tier chalcedony, exquisite tier chalcedony. After a few dozen pieces, they all turned out to be exquisite tier chalcedony. A strong wave of spiritual energy filled the air. The disciples who were mining in the surroundings also stopped their work and gathered around. Oh my God, are my eyes playing tricks on me? So many exquisite tear chalcedonies. What? What's going on? We've been working so hard for so long and yet we still can't get so many exquisite tear chalcedonies. How did this guy do it? The disciples discussed among themselves. Even Daoist Yuntao was speechless and regretful. This Chu Kuangren actually had some kind of technique to identify raw stones. Otherwise, there was no way to explain how he could get so many exquisite tear chalcedonies. This time, he was the one who suffered a loss. Continue cutting. Chu Kuangren ignored Daoist Yuntao and the others and said to the disciple who was in charge of cutting. All right. That disciple was already shocked by the dozens of exquisite tear chalcedonies. He only regained his senses when he heard Chu Kuangren's words. He quickly nodded and continued to cut the stones. Exquisite tear chalcedonies, exquisite tear chalcedonies. Many of the disciples were dumbfounded. Looking at the exquisite tear chalcedonies that were piled up like cabbages, they did not know what to say. At that moment, a colorful ray of light shot into the sky. The clouds were dyed colorful as dense spiritual qi converged into a vortex. Even Daoist Yuntao's body could not help but tremble at the sight. This is the celestial core. The celestial core was also a type of celestial chalcedony, but it was the essence of chalcedony essence, which was much more valuable than exquisite tear chalcedonies. Over the years, the ethereal rapture had only mined a few kilograms of celestial cores, which was very rare. I can't believe he still found celestial cores. Daoist Yuntao's heart was bleeding. 1 kilogram of celestial core was equivalent to tens of millions of top-tier soul stones. Coupled with the exquisite tear chalcedonies that Chu Kuangren had just cut, the total value of the celestial cores had far exceeded 1 billion top-tier soul stones. However, what made Daoist Yuntao's heart ache was yet to come. The next raw stones that were cut open contained celestial cores. When the stone cutting was complete, Chu Kuangren had obtained a total of 5 kilograms of celestial cores and 4 kilograms of exquisite tear celestial chalcedonies. The total value was incalculable. Chapter 379. Chu Kuangren. Master Daoist Yuntao gritted his teeth. Ethereal rapture had suffered a huge loss this time. Everything else aside, just the kilogram of celestial cores alone was worth all the celestial chalcedonies that ethereal rapture had mined for tens of thousands of years. Not to mention the 2,000 kilograms of exquisite tear celestial chalcedonies. Chu Kuangren was literally sucking the ethereal rapture dry. How did he manage to find the celestial chalcedony in the entire celestial chalcedony mine, which weighs billions of kilograms? Oh my God, I've been here for so long, but I've never seen anything like this. 1 kilogram of celestial cores? Did he just find all the celestial cores in the entire celestial chalcedony mineral vein? Unbelievable. Everyone at the scene could not believe it. Even if Chu Kuangren had the ability to identify raw gemstones, it would still take him at least a few months or even a year to find all these celestial cores in such a large amount of raw gemstones or even an entire mineral vein. However, how long did Chu Kuangren take? He found them in less than half a day. This was no longer something that could be explained by his ability to identify ores. It was as if the celestial cores ran to Chu Kuangren on their own. How did he do it? Everyone couldn't help but have this doubt in their minds. Chu Kuangren did not care about what the crowd thought. He waved his hand and stored all the celestial chalcedonies into his yin and yang ring before smiling in satisfaction. What the crowd did not know was that he had the treasure locating skill. He knew exactly which ores contained the best celestial chalcedony. Since the deal is done, it's time for me to leave. Chu Kuangren chuckled. Hold it right there. You're not allowed to leave. A few elders suddenly rushed up and blocked Chu Kuangren's way. Several powerful surges of sage Daoist rhymes immediately locked onto Chu Kuangren. The few of them stared at Chu Kuangren with cold gazes. Chu Kuangren placed his hand on the hilt of his descendant's self-sword. His expression was calm, but the chill in his eyes sent chills down everyone's spines. "Sages, are you trying to act shamelessly?" Chu Kuangren said calmly. A wave of sword-based Daoist rhyme spread out, and the surrounding air seemed to have transformed into a piercingly cold sword qi, causing everyone to feel a stabbing pain. "You've taken so many celestial essence crystals and peerless grade jade essence crystals. Do you want us to let you leave just like that?" "That's impossible. The peerless grade chalcedony is fine, but the heaven crystal essence must be left behind," a few sages said. For the cultivators of ethereal celestial chalcedony, a high-grade celestial chalcedony was just too important, let alone the celestial essence. It was very useful even for sages. How could they hand it over so easily? "Fellow Daoist Yuntao, we have an agreement. No matter what kind of celestial chalcedony is extracted from the 5,000 kilograms raw stone, it belongs to me." "What? Are you going back on your word now?" Chu Kuangren ignored the elders and stared straight at Master Daoist Yuntao, waiting for his response. However, the gradually rising sword-based Daoist rhyme on his body indicated that if the other party dared to go back on his words, he wouldn't mind carving out a path of blood. Daoist Yuntao naturally saw through the other party's attitude. His expression kept changing, and finally, he took a deep breath. "Let him go. Sect Master. We mustn't lose that 5,000 kilograms of celestial essence." The expressions of the few elders changed. "Let him go. We've already agreed on this. If he goes back on his word, it'll be a disgrace to ethereal celestial." Master Daoist Yuntao said. The elders looked at each other at his words. In the end, they could only reluctantly retract their auras. "A wise move," Chu Kuangren said. With his head held high, he slowly left under the watchful eyes of the crowd. "Shuizheng, please send Brother Chu off," Master Daoist Yuntao said to Shuizheng, who was among the crowd. "Yes." Shuizheng quickly followed him and looked at Chu Kuangren helplessly. He finally knew that the rumors in the outside world were true. Nothing good came out of having Chu Kuangren pay them a visit. The previous few orthodoxies had their sages killed, and this time, ethereal celestial rapture had lost so many celestial essences and celestial chalcedonies. This loss was no less than the death of a few sages. "Let's stop here." Chu Kuangren arrived at the exit of ethereal rapture's secret realm and said to Shuizheng and Kai Yun, who he had met along the way. "Brother Chu, remember to come again when you're free." Kai Yun said reluctantly. "Sigh, it's such a shame that such a good-looking man has to leave after less than a day." "Alright, I'll come visit again when I'm free," Chu Kuangren replied politely. Shuizheng's expression changed when he heard that. Ethereal rapture's whereabouts are unpredictable and they're always on the move. "Brother Chu, if you don't know how to track them down, I'm afraid you won't be able to find them. Let's not trouble ourselves." Chu Kuangren's visit this time had already dealt a huge blow to ethereal rapture. What would happen if he were to visit again? I'll take my leave then." Chu Kuangren smiled. He then turned around and left ethereal rapture. Being able to obtain 5,000 kilograms of celestial essences is a surprise. With them, the astonishing cloud of seas formation's power can be maximized. "I wonder how Boss Qian is doing," Chu Kuangren thought to himself on his way back to the Black Heaven sect. Setting up the astonishing cloud of seas formation required two major elements. One was the celestial chalcedony, and the other was the cloud flow ore. Now, he had obtained one of them. After returning to the Black Heaven sect, Chu Kuangren contacted the Four Seas firm. He learned that Qian Fugue had already prepared enough cloud flow ore and was now shipping it to the Black Heaven sect. "Now, I just need to wait for the cloud flow ore to set up the astonishing cloud of seas formation," Chu Kuangren thought to himself. However, before that, someone else came knocking on his door. That person was from the Acheron Manor of the Unknown Lands. Black Heaven Sect, inside the Longevity Hall. A black-robed cultivator stood with his hands behind his back with a cold expression. Chilling Daoist rhymes flowed around his body. Chu Kuangren narrowed his eyes when he saw that person. That familiar aura belonged to a demonic cultivator. Moreover, it was a sage-level demonic cultivator. I'm an elder of Acheron Manor, Black Willow. Black Willow Sage greeted Chu Kuangren with a fist salute. Black Willow Sage, what brings you to the Black Heaven Sect? I've heard that not long ago, the Empyrean Walker of Acheron Manor had a conflict with you, Brother Chu. I'm here today to resolve this matter. Black Willow Sage smiled. He took out a yin and yang ring and said, there are 1 billion top-tier soul stones in here. Please accept them, Brother Chu. Let's bury the hatchet. 1 billion top-tier soul stones. Acheron Manor sure is generous. Chu Kuangren was amazed. Although he did not mind using 1 billion top-tier soul stones to trade the celestial chalcedony with ethereal rapture, to a sage orthodoxy, 1 billion top-tier soul stones was a very large number. When Chu Kuangren won a few billion soul stones in the first city, it was enough to make some sage orthodoxies cry in pain. Since we've buried the hatchet, I hope Brother Chu can return Wudao's yin and yang ring, Black Willow Sage continued. Who said we agreed? Chu Kuangren said indifferently. Black Willow Sage's expression froze and the smile on his face gradually disappeared. Brother Chu, do you think these soul stones are not enough? It's useless no matter how many soul stones you bring. Yuan Wudao ordered the Underworld Palace to secretly poison our Black Heaven Sect. There's no way to resolve this. Go back and tell him that his life is mine. No one can stop him. Chapter 380. Go back and tell Yuan Wudao that I'm going to kill him. No one can stop him. Chu Kuangren said coldly. 1 billion soul stones? Was that a lot? Besides the fact that the Black Heaven Sect did not lack soul stones, 1 billion soul stones were nothing compared to the lives of the Black Heaven Sect's disciples. Brother Chu, do you really have to go this far? Black Willow Sage's expression darkened. However, Chu Kuangren did not care. He sat calmly on his chair and even took a sip of tea. That's all I have to say. Get lost. You. Chu Kuangren, you've gone too far. Black Willow Sage was furious. What's wrong? As a demonic cultivator, I'm letting you go now. Do you have anything to complain about? Chu Kuangren looked up and said. He did not have a good impression of the Unknown Lands, and he hated demonic Unknown Lands like the Acheron Manor even more. It was especially so after Yuan Wudao instructed the Underworld Palace to poison the Black Heaven Sect. If it were not for the fact that the Black Heaven Sect had yet to set up a formation to deal with the Unknown Lands, he would have killed Yuan Wudao. I can leave, but I must take back Wudao's yin and yang ring. Black Willow Sage suppressed his anger and said. Oh, so you care about that yin and yang ring? Chu Kuangren chuckled and took out a jade amulet. It was the heavenly jade amulet that he obtained from Yuan Wudao's yin and yang ring. He played with it in his hand and looked at Black Willow Sage. What do you care about, the yin and yang ring or this heavenly jade amulet? You know about this jade amulet? Black Willow Sage's expression changed. That should not be possible. After so many years, the records of the emperors in the outside world should have been mostly cleaned up by the Unknown Lands. How did Chu Kuangren know about this heavenly jade amulet? So what if I know? So what if I don't know? I'm taking this jade amulet anyway, Chu Kuangren said. Black Willow Sage looked at Chu Kuangren and said, Brother Chu, aren't you afraid of becoming a public enemy? Chu Kuangren, who was playing with the jade amulet, stopped. The atmosphere suddenly became tense. Black Willow Sage also felt an inexplicable pressure in the grand hall, which made him wary. Everyone's target, haven't I been one for a long time? Acheron Manor, do you dare to try first? Black Willow Saint was silent for a while. Then, he snorted, goodbye. He turned and left. Even though he was a great sage, he still didn't dare to use force. When Chu Quanren threatened the Heavenly Golden Palace, many of the unknown lands had secretly investigated the Bottomless Chasm's current situation. They knew that the Bottomless Chasm was heavily damaged, and all of this was most likely related to Chu Quanren. Sect leader, Elder Rian could not help but look at Chu Quanren worriedly. As intelligent as she was, she could also sense the current situation that Chu Quanren and the Black Heaven sect were in. Leave everything to me. Chu Quanren did not say much. However, these 4 words inexplicably made Elder Rian feel at ease. The Black Heaven sect will advance and retreat together with the sect leader. Life and death. Elder Rian said firmly. What life and death? Don't exaggerate it so much. It's just a few shameless places. Why are you making it sound like the end of the world? Chu Quanren chuckled and pretended to be relaxed. At this moment, his communication artifact vibrated. It's me. What's the matter? Sect leader Chu, something bad has happened. The batch of cloud flow ore that you requested has been robbed in the outer seas. Boss Qian's voice came from the communication artifact. A cold glint flashed across Chu Quanren's eyes when he heard that. Tell me, what happened? We're not sure either. Just a while ago, the team that was transporting the cloud flow ore was robbed in the outer seas. Who did it? I'm not sure. It's an emergency, so we're still investigating. Alright, I understand. I'll go there myself. Chu Quanren said. He then turned off the communication artifact. After that, he gave Elder Rian some instructions and left the Black Heaven sect. He then turned into a stream of light and flew towards the outer seas. Outer seas. A few large ships docked at the shore of Ravengale Island. Many people disembarked from the ships, and most of them were shackled as they were chased onto the island. Brother, what should we do with the ores on the ships? A man dressed in black asked a golden core cultivator. The nascent soul cultivator looked at the piles and piles of cloud flow ore on the ships behind him and licked his lips. These ores are worth a lot. Find a place to store them and sell them when the time comes. Where should we put them? Besides, with so many ores, it'll be easy for us to be discovered. If the elders find out that we're secretly storing ores, we'll suffer. If only we had a high-grade yin and yang ring. The black-robed cultivator said helplessly. Most low-level cultivators did not have a yin and yang ring. Even if they did, it would be a low-grade yin and yang ring that was 1 or 2 cubic meters in size. I do have one here, but I can't store all of them. The golden core cultivator pondered for a while and said, how about this? Get someone to hide 1/3 of the ores in a nearby valley. As for the remaining 2/3, hand it over to the elders. There was no way they could secretly consume so many ores. All right. The 2 of them split up. Not long after, an elder came. How's it going? Elder, we've captured a total of 1,360 people this time. Including the ones we've captured before, we've gathered 10,000 people. It's enough for us to sacrifice to the serpent deity, the golden core cultivator said. Then, he brought the elder to a few merchant ships. When he saw the cloud flow ore, the elder's eyes lit up. Oh, so many cloud flow ore, and they're all top tier too. They're worth a lot. Wait, this is the Four Seas Merchant Guild's ship. The elder looked at the merchant ship in surprise. However, he did not take it to heart. The Four Seas Merchant Guild was indeed famous, but Ravengale Island did not have much business with them anyway. Lu Jia, you've done well this time. When the sacrificial ceremony is over, I'll promote you as a true disciple. Thank you, Elder, Lu Jia said happily. Gather everyone now. We'll head to the Serpent Deity's oceanic territory tomorrow. Yes. The next day. A large ship carrying tens of thousands of people left Ravengale Island. On this day, Chu Kuangren had also arrived at the outer seas. Although the Four Seas firm had yet to investigate the identity of the person who had stolen the Cloudflow ore, Chu Kuangren had the treasure locating skill, which gave him a keen sense of treasure. With so many Cloudflow ores gathered together, the fluctuations they emitted were enough for Chu Kuangren to sense them from tens of thousands of miles away. He used the treasure locating skill all the way and finally locked onto an island. This island was huge, and there were many smaller islands scattered around it. Moreover, there were more than 100,000 cultivators living there. It was obviously an extraordinary orthodoxy in the outer seas. However, Chu Kuangren did not care about that. He came to the sky above the largest island, raised his hand, and gathered the spiritual qi. In an instant, the wind and clouds around him surged, and a horrifying surge of Daoist rhyme spread in all directions with Chu Kuangren at the center. All the cultivators on the island sensed this extraordinary aura, and they all looked towards the sky with their mouths agape. Chapter 381. On Ravengale Island, a majestic spiritual power gathered and formed into a huge vortex. Its extraordinary aura was felt by every cultivator on the island. Even one of the sages on the island was shocked. This aura, could it be, the Ravengale Island sage, the old man with the aquiline nose who went to the school of White Lotus to retrieve the Ravenblade sage's corpse, suddenly opened his eyes. He stared at the sky above Ravengale Island with a horrified expression. There was no mistaking that aura. D****, how did he get here? The old man with the aquiline nose cursed and quickly flew out. In the sky, Chu Kuangren gathered his spiritual power and a majestic Buddhist light appeared, which then turned into a huge golden palm that descended from the sky. Before the palm arrived, the entire Ravengale Island was already shaking. What a horrifying palm energy! I wonder if Ravengale Island will be annihilated if this palm strikes. No, we must block it. The cultivators of Ravengale Island were terrified. Some of the strong cultivators on the island joined forces and unleashed wave after wave of Daoist rhymes that blasted towards the golden palm. However, the palm was unstoppable. When the Daoist rhymes landed on it, they were easily destroyed like bubbles. 1,000 meters, 700 meters, 500 meters, 300 meters, as the palm approached the island, the horrifying pressure caused some of the weaker cultivators on Ravengale Island to explode and die. Even the battle monarchs and honorables could not withstand such power. They all fell to their knees and looked at the descending palm in horror. At that critical moment, a figure appeared in front of the crowd. It was the old man with the aquiline nose. He roared and channeled his spiritual power. Sage Daoist rhymes erupted and formed a black barrier in front of the palm. The moment the two collided, the entire island shook violently. Block it! The old man with the aquiline nose growled and channeled his spiritual power desperately. However, the black barrier that he had created was unable to withstand this palm strike. It shattered with a loud bang, and the huge palm strike smashed onto the island. The earth-shattering explosion shook the ocean. The ground that was hit by the palm caved in, causing smoke and dust to billow out. The ground shattered, and huge cracks spread out like a spider web, a storm was stirred up, and countless cultivators were sent flying. With the island as the center, the waves continued to spread outwards. When everything calmed down, everyone was greeted by the sight of a devastated land and a shattered island. A huge hole appeared in the middle of Blackwind Island. Waves surged in the middle, and with the hole as the center, huge cracks spread out, directly dividing the entire Blackwind Island into more than a dozen pieces. Everyone was shocked by this scene. They stared at the white-robed Chu Kuangren who was hovering in midair. Their eyes were filled with hatred and deep fear. The talon-shaped nose old man stared at Chu Kuangren in the sky and roared furiously, "Chu Kuangren, what the hell are you trying to do?" Chu Kuangren's gaze was as cold as ice. "I'm the one who asked you what you're planning to do. Have you eaten a dragon's liver or a phoenix's gallbladder? How dare you touch my things?" The aquiline-nosed old man was stunned for a moment, and then he was a little confused. Since when did they touch Chu Kuangren's things? What do you mean? What do you mean by that? Hand over the cloud flow or otherwise, I will make Blackwind Island sink into the sea today. Hearing Chu Kuangren's words, an old man in the crowd suddenly turned pale. The disciple next to him did not fare any better. His legs turned to jelly, and he immediately fell to the ground, terrified. The cloud flow or, that batch of cloud flow or belongs to you. The Blackwind Island elder looked at Chu Kuangren and said in horror. Hearing that, the aquiline-nosed old man also regained his senses. He did not expect Blackwind Island to really take Chu Kuangren's things. What the hell is going on? The aquiline-nosed old man stared at that elder and shouted. He even had the intention to skin that elder alive. You know that Chu Kuangren is powerful and not to be messed with, yet you still went to find trouble with him. Are you not digging your own grave? It doesn't matter if you die, but why drag Blackwind Island into this? The aquiline-nosed old man wanted to cry but no tears came out. Dear sage, this is what happened. When we were capturing the offerings, we caught a merchant ship, and there was a pile of cloud flow ore on it. That elder explained the incident in detail. He looked at Lu Jia, who robbed the merchant ship, with a murderous glare. Of all people to rob, why did you have to rob Chu Kuangren? Lu Jia's face was even paler. He was so scared that his heart was about to burst. He looked at the black-robed cultivator beside him with a murderous glare. It was all because of this guy. If not for his idea to rob the merchant ship, he and Blackwind Island would not have indirectly provoked Chu Kuangren. The black-robed cultivator looked around but could not find anyone. He also looked at Lu Jia with a sullen expression. Can you blame me for this? If you want to blame someone, blame the serpent deity. If not for him wanting the offerings, we would not have gone out to sea to capture people and provoke Chu Kuangren. Quickly, take it out. The aquiline-nosed old man shouted at the elder. That elder had no choice but to obediently take out a yin and yang ring. Chu Kuangren sucked it into his hand and used his spiritual thought to activate it. Then, his expression turned cold. You guys are messing with me. The cloud flow ore here is not all, there's still more. He wanted 10 million kilograms of top-tier cloud flow ore, and there were only 7 to 8 million kilograms here. Obviously, there were still a few million kilograms left. Sect leader Chu, this is really all the cloud flow ore that we have. We really didn't lie to you, the elder said innocently. Beside him, Lu Jia's face was pale, and his expression kept changing. He did not dare to come out and explain. Because he was the one who took the rest of the cloud flow ore. If word got out, the elders would definitely not let him off the hook. Besides, Chu Kuangren still had the sages and the elders to back him up. He was just an insignificant person. No matter what, Chu Kuangren would not implicate him. Besides, the cloud flow ore was hidden so well that Chu Kuangren would never find it. Very good, very good. You didn't lie to me. Chu Kuangren sneered. He activated his treasure locating skill and dashed towards a certain direction. The aquiline-nosed old man and the others followed suit. Soon, the group arrived at a valley. The valley was very quiet and empty. At first glance, there was nothing at all. However, Chu Kuangren came in front of a mountain wall. In the blink of an eye, a sword chi shot out. When the sword chi landed on the mountain wall, it seemed to have hit an invisible barrier. A cave appeared on the mountain wall. It was a maze. The cave was hidden. If one did not pay attention, one would not be able to see anything unusual even if they used their spiritual thoughts to scan it. Hidden inside the cave were a few million kilograms of cloud flow ore. Seeing this, Lu Jia's face turned pale in an instant. The elder's body shuddered. Then, as if he had figured out something, he looked at Lu Jia and roared, "I'll kill you." With a palm attack, Lu Jia was blasted into a mist of blood. Chu Kuangren looked at the scene coldly without a change in his expression. He then kept the remaining cloud flow ore into his yin and yang ring. Then, he said, "You robbed my cloud flow ore and even tried to steal a portion of it after I came knocking on your door. How should I settle this score?" Chapter 382. How are we going to settle this? Everyone's eyes widened when they heard Chu Kuangren's words. How are we going to settle this? You've already taken the cloud flow ore and destroyed Raven Gale Island with a single palm strike. Shouldn't we be the ones to settle this with you? Chu Kuangren, you can take the cloud flow ore and we won't pursue the matter of you destroying Raven Gale Island. Don't you go too far. The old man with the aquiline nose suppressed his anger and said. Pursue? What can you possibly pursue? You guys stole my stuff and made me come all the way here to get it back. You guys even tried to lie to me along the way. Let me ask you this, what can you possibly pursue from me? Chu Kuangren asked coldly as a terrifying sword-based Daoist rhyme emanated from his body. His aura was like a mountain as it suppressed the old man with the aquiline nose. Under his aura, the old man's face turned red and his body trembled in anger. Didn't we return everything to you? Besides, it was that disciple who hid the truth from you, not us. What else do you want? Humph, who knows if you guys were the ones who ordered that person to do this. Now that he's exposed and killed by you guys, there's no evidence left. Do you really think I'm a pushover? If you don't give me an explanation today, I won't let this go. Chu Kuangren snorted coldly. The old man with the aquiline nose and the others were dumbfounded. They had never seen such a shameless person before. How could Chu Kuangren be so unreasonable after destroying Raven Gale Island with a single palm strike, and now he wanted them to give him an explanation? However, what else could they say when Chu Kuangren was so powerful? State your terms. The old man with the aquiline nose said sullenly. 1 billion soul stones. Why don't you just rob us instead? The old man with the aquiline nose said angrily. Rob? Don't think of me as the same as you guys. I'm a very reasonable person and would never do something like this. You. The old man with the aquiline nose was so angry that his body trembled and his face turned pale. He almost spat out a mouthful of blood. All right, we'll admit defeat this time. The old man with the aquiline nose had no choice but to agree. They had no choice but to admit defeat. They could not defeat Chu Kuangren anyway. What else could he do? I'll give you 3 months to prepare. If I don't see this batch of soul stones in the Black Heaven sect within 3 months, I'll come again. Chu Kuangren said coldly. Just as he was about to leave, he suddenly remembered something. When you robbed the merchant ship, where were those people? Don't tell me they were all killed by you. Chu Kuangren said coldly. No, but they've been sent to the Serpent Deity's sea region. The hook-nosed old man braced himself and said. Snake Deity Sea area? That's right. Today is the Serpent God's sacrificial ceremony. Each of the 36 islands needs to prepare at least 10,000 people to sacrifice to the Serpent God. Upon hearing that, Chu Kuangren could not help but erupt with rage. Tell me, during every sacrificial ceremony, at least hundreds of thousands of people would be eaten by that so-called serpent deity, right? Yes. Did you kidnap all these people? Chu Kuangren, this is the 36 oceanic islands' internal affairs. Are you going to interfere in this as well? The hook-nosed old man said coldly. Heh, as long as you don't harm the people under my Black Heaven sect's jurisdiction, it doesn't matter. However, these people who transport the cloud flow or are considered to be working for me, so I'm going to interfere in this sacrificial ceremony no matter what. Chu Kuangren said coldly. Are you going to go against the serpent deity of the 36 oceanic islands just for a few low-level cultivators and even some common people? The hook-nosed old man was in disbelief. How could this guy always do things that were beyond the comprehension of the world? Cut the crap. Bring me to the serpent deity's sea region. Chu Kuangren said indifferently. Alright, alright. I'd like to see what you can do to the serpent deity under the 36 oceanic islands' watchful eyes. The hook-nosed old man said coldly. He had his own plans when he agreed to Chu Kuangren's conditions. 1 billion soul stones was too much for the Ravengale Island. If they could borrow the serpent deity's power, they might be able to take care of Chu Kuangren. When that happened, they would not have to pay soul stones anymore. Let's go. The hook-nosed old man brought Chu Kuangren to the serpent deity's sea region. At this time, somewhere in the sea, 36 gigantic ships slowly gathered, and on each ship was a group of people who were tied up. These people were tied up on the deck, and their faces were ashen. It was as if they had already guessed what would happen to them. In the end, 36 ships gathered together. Greetings, island chieftains. How have you been? The Ravengale Island chieftain greeted the chieftains on the deck. Greetings, Ravengale Island chieftain. Sapphire Island chieftain, these offerings of yours look pretty good. Huh, you're too kind. The chieftains of the 36 oceanic islands greeted each other. At the same time, they were also secretly observing each other's offerings. Every time they offered a sacrifice, the 36 oceanic islands would secretly compare their offerings. Whoever offered the best would receive the serpent deity's blessing. That was the consensus of the 36 oceanic islands. For example, the previous island chieftain of Ravengale Island, the Ravenblade Sage, sacrificed his companion to the serpent deity in order to become a sage. In return, he received a tribulation treasure and successfully became a sage. Oh, the Sapphire Island chieftain has brought quite a lot of people. Everyone looked at the Sapphire Island chieftain. They saw that the ships of the other party were densely packed with people. There were at least 30 to 40,000 of them, and every single one of them was a strong and muscular man. Many of them were even cultivators. Sob sob, a series of crying sounds could be heard. Everyone looked over and their eyes narrowed. On one of the ships, there were children who looked to be only 7 or 8 years old. These children seemed to have sensed something and were crying loudly. Father, mother, where are you? Sob sob, I want to go home. An old man in a white robe stood on the ship. He held a walking stick in his hand and looked kind and friendly. Heh, 3,000 young boys and girls. Sorry for the embarrassment. The old man chuckled. The rest of the chieftains looked at him with fear. 3,000 young boys and girls. TSK, this White Smoke Island chieftain sure is a lunatic to do something like this. I'm impressed. Looks like the White Smoke Island chieftain has come out on top this time. The people on the other ships who were used as sacrifices were livid when they saw the 3,000 young boys and girls. B***stards. How dare you do such a thing? Those are a bunch of children. Bastards, bastards. You deserve to die 1,000 times. F***CKU. B***stards. If you still have a shred of conscience, let them go. Come at us if you dare. B***stards. You will all die a horrible death. However, no matter how much the people cursed, the chieftains of the 36 oceanic islands remained unmoved and looked at them coldly. They had long gotten used to this. Every time we offer sacrifices to the serpent deity, these sacrifices are always so noisy. They're like flies. One of the chieftains curled his lips. Let them scold us. It won't take long anyway. Judging by the time, the serpent deity should be here soon. Chapter 383. Amidst the clamor of the crowd, a huge black shadow gradually emerged from the surface of the sea. The chieftains immediately knelt down on the deck respectfully. Soon, a gigantic snake head the size of a small hill emerged from the surface of the sea. It was a greenish-black snake head, with a pair of pale yellow eyes that were cold and merciless. What caught everyone's attention was the peculiar horn that grew on the snake's head. Daoist rhymes swirled around the horn, giving off a terrifying power. The noisy crowd felt as if they had been plunged into an icehouse when they saw the giant snake. They were so frightened that they could not speak. Greetings, serpent deity. Greetings, serpent deity. The chieftains of the 36 oceanic islands greeted respectfully. The serpent deity ignored them. Its cold eyes swept across the offerings on the 36 ships. When it saw the 3,000 young boys and girls, a look of admiration appeared in its eyes. White Smoke Island chieftain, you've done well. The serpent deity spoke. It sounded like a man's voice, but it was extremely sharp, as if it was about to pierce through one's eardrums. The 3,000 young boys and girls cried even louder when they heard the voice. Thank you for the compliment, serpent deity. As long as the serpent deity is satisfied, I'm willing to sacrifice my life for you, White Smoke Island chieftain said excitedly. Very well. I'm going to enjoy the offerings now. You guys can leave first, the serpent deity said calmly. Yes. The chieftains of the 36 oceanic islands got up and flew away from the ships. After they left, the serpent deity dove back into the sea. However, a deathly chill filled the entire surface of the sea. Just then, a huge tail emerged from the sea, splashing water as it slammed into one of the ships. With a loud bang, the ship broke apart. Tens of thousands of people fell into the sea, screaming in fear. The serpent deity opened its mouth and sucked one person after another into its mouth. The surface of the sea was instantly dyed red with blood. No, help. Sob, I don't want to die, cries of agony could be heard from the sea. Some cultivators wanted to resist, but the might of the serpent deity was not something that these low-level cultivators could withstand. The serpent deity devoured people very quickly. With a single breath, it sucked in hundreds of people. It did not even need to chew to swallow them. Before long, tens of thousands of people were buried in the serpent deity's stomach. But this was only the sacrifice for the first ship. To the serpent god, it was just an appetizer. His cold yellow snake eyes looked at the boat carrying the 3,000 boys and girls, and he couldn't help but lick his lips. Let's save the best for last. The serpent god then cast his gaze at the other ship. With a flick of its tail, the ship broke apart. Countless people fell into the water, and screams of fear rose and fell. The scene from before continued to play out. Tens of thousands of cultivators and commoners were devoured by the serpent deity. High up in the air, the island leaders of the 36 islands watched on coldly. There was no trace of pity on their faces. They were used to this. 1 ship, 2 ships, 3 ships, more than 10 large ships sank to the bottom of the sea, and more than 100,000 people were buried in the snake's stomach. At that moment, the serpent deity had already arrived in front of Blackwind Island's ship. Some of the people captured here were the people from the Four Seas trading firm who were escorting the Cloudflow ore. At this moment, their faces were filled with despair. I never thought that I would have to pay with my life for just escorting a batch of ores, and in such a manner. Me too. Damn it, I don't want to die yet. An old man had his eyes closed. Suddenly, a powerful aura erupted from his body. While the serpent god was approaching him, he threw a punch with all his might. The punch swept across the sky, creating waves of air. He even used some kind of secret technique that burned his life for this punch. Elder Lu. This old man was the leader of the team that escorted the oars. He was a golden core cultivator, but he was injured by the disciples of Blackwind Island and had been secretly healing himself ever since he was brought to this ship. Now that he had recovered and burned his life, his attack power had reached the nascent soul level. However, when this punch landed on the serpent deity's head, it burst like a bubble. The serpent god merely looked at him playfully, not feeling anything at all. As expected, it's useless. Elder Lu smiled bitterly. How could a mere golden core cultivator like him, who was worshipped by the 36 islands as a god? In the next moment, he was directly swallowed into the serpent god's stomach. Damn it, damn it, damn it. Don't eat me, don't eat me. Angry shouts and pleas for mercy were heard one after another. The entire ship was shrouded in despair. It's over. A young woman closed her eyes, preparing to die. Suddenly, she seemed to hear some kind of rumbling sound. This sound was very prominent in the midst of all the shouting and cursing. She could not help but open her eyes. She saw that the serpent god, who was about to devour everyone, was raising its head and staring at the sky. There was a hint of seriousness in its eyes. The rumbling sound that the young woman heard came from the sky as well. The rumbling sound did not stop. It was as if something was piercing through the sky and was about to break through the void. The island lords looked towards the source of the sound. What is it? There it is. They saw a terrifying wave of air descending from the sky above the serpent god. Upon closer inspection, they realized that it was a sword. It was a beautiful white jade long sword. A sword that caused the island masters of the 36 isles to suck in a breath of cold air. The beautiful sword pierced through the sky and landed on the serpent god's head with a loud bang. The terrifying force smashed the serpent god's head into the sea, creating a huge pillar of water and waves. The surrounding ships were pushed away by the waves. It's him. Damn it, why is he here? The island lords of the 36 oceanic islands stared at the surface of the sea. The water pillar fell like a rainstorm. Amidst the mist, everyone could only see a white-robed figure standing on the surface of the water. That person held a beautiful ancient sword in his hand. He was dressed in white and had black hair. His face was so handsome that it did not look like it belonged to this world. It was Chu Kuangren. When he saw the wreckage of dozens of ships and the sea that was dyed red with blood, he knew that he was too late. After all, many people had died in the hands of the serpent god. When he saw the 3,000 wailing boys and girls, an incomparably blazing killing intent surged in his chest. He glanced at the 36 oceanic islands' island lords in the sky. The coldness in his eyes sent chills down their spines. Can anyone tell me what's going on? Why is Chu Kuangren here? One of the island lords asked in fear. Chu Kuangren was too famous in the firmament star. They could even call him the best in the world. I'm the one who brought him here. At that moment, the talon-shaped nose old man appeared in front of everyone. The Ravengale Island lord's expression changed when he saw him. He hurriedly bowed and asked, "Sage, what's going on?" The talon-shaped nose old man briefly explained what happened. He then said coldly, "Chu Kuangren is too much of a threat. Today is the perfect time for the serpent god to get rid of him." The other island lords breathed a sigh of relief when they heard that. That's right, we still have the serpent god. They knew very well how powerful the serpent god was. Chapter 384. Chu Kuangren stood proudly on the surface of the ocean. He glanced at the ships around him and then took out the elusive mirage. The gigantic elusive mirage appeared on the surface of the ocean, stirring up huge waves. Then, he channeled his spiritual power to lift the ship that carried the 3,000 boys and girls and placed it on the elusive mirage. He did the same thing and placed the rest of the ships on the elusive mirage. With the elusive mirage's size, it could easily fit all of the ships on it. Just as he placed the last ship on the elusive mirage, a gigantic whirlpool suddenly appeared on the surface of the ocean. That whirlpool almost engulfed the entire elusive mirage. The elusive mirage shook violently. The serpent deity wanted to drag the elusive mirage to the bottom of the ocean and devour the remaining offerings. Humph, what a fool! Chu Kuangren snorted. If it were an ordinary ship, even one as big as the elusive mirage, it would have been dragged to the bottom of the ocean by the serpent deity's power. However, the elusive mirage was no ordinary ship. Chu Kuangren had long mastered the elusive mirage, so he activated the defensive formation on it. A gigantic light barrier immediately enveloped the elusive mirage. No matter how the serpent deity manipulated the whirlpool, it could no longer be affected. In the end, the elusive mirage rose into the air and escaped from the whirlpool. Chu Kuangren stood on the surface of the ocean and stared at the whirlpool. He saw a gigantic serpent head slowly stretching out from within. A pair of cold, yellow eyes stared at Chu Kuangren. It had taken a sword attack from Chu Kuangren, but it did not seem to be injured. Only a few scales were missing from its head. Its physical strength was even stronger than the 9-headed snakelets. "Why are you stopping me from eating?" the serpent deity said sharply. "My people are among those you want to eat. Besides, how dare a lowly beast like you eat humans as it pleases? You deserve death. These are my offerings. If you want to find them, go find the ones who sent them here," the serpent deity said coldly. "Of course, after I kill you." "What a joke. You? Me?" Chu Kuangren said no more. A terrifying surge of sword-based Daoist rhyme erupted from his body as he activated his 3 great Daoist physique. With a slash of the sword, the power of the 10,000 Dharma, the murderous aura, and the sword chi fused together. A dazzling sword light directly split the sea. The snake god narrowed its eyes slightly in the face of the majestic sword. It let out a low roar, and the seawater around it began to boil rapidly. Pillars of water erupted, smashing toward the sword chi with a terrifying impact. Boom, 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 the majestic sword chi collided with the water pillars one after another, and a large amount of water vapor exploded, forming a mist that filled the sky. Just when Chu Kuangren was about to continue his attack, a gigantic tail swung at him from the side. The force of the tail was so great that it could shatter a mountain range. Even a sage's body could not withstand it. Demon subduing palm. Chu Kuangren channeled his spiritual power and the vast Buddhist light transformed into a giant golden hand. The moment the two forces collided, Chu Kuangren felt an unprecedented force shattering the giant golden hand. The snake's tail ruthlessly whipped his body, and a terrifying power exploded, directly crushing his limbs and bones. His entire person turned into minced meat that filled the sky and exploded on the spot. High up in the sky, the chieftains of the 36 oceanic islands were dumbfounded at the sight. Chu Kuangren, whose name had shaken the world, had died just like that. As expected of the snake deity. How impressive. "Huh, he's too strong. Chu Kuangren is nothing compared to the snake deity." The talon-shaped nose old man was in disbelief. That was Chu Kuangren's, yet he was whipped to death just like that? Why does this feel so unreal? On the surface of the sea, the snake deity could not help but sneer at Chu Kuangren's minced meat. "You talk big, but your abilities are not worth mentioning." Suddenly, he sensed that something was not right. Even after Chu Kuangren was killed, the descendant self-sword was still floating on the surface of the sea with strands of sword chi surrounding it. The sword owner is already dead, so why is the sword still so magical? What's going on? Could it be? The snake deity's eyes trembled. Suddenly, it saw the pile of minced meat on the surface of the sea crazily gathering together, forming into a lump of meat. The lump of meat gradually formed into a human figure. It was Chu Kuangren. He was not dead yet. How is this possible? He can still revive after being smashed into pieces? The snake deity was dumbfounded. Meanwhile, Chu Kuangren stretched his body and took out a set of clothes from his yin and yang ring to cover his newly reborn body. However, aside from a few female cultivators, no one cared about that. They all looked at Chu Kuangren in disbelief. Rebirth after being smashed into pieces? Even for a saint, this kind of thing was like a fantasy. The power of the snake deity is indeed something. Chu Kuangren looked at the snake deity and activated his eye of revelation. Hua Shi is an ancient wild beast with a sage ruler cultivation level. Compared to his spiritual power, his physical strength is not to be underestimated. Based on the strength of both parties, the host's chance of winning is less than 10%. Please be careful. Less than 10%? Chu Kuangren smiled and held the descendant self-sword. But I won't lose either. His eyes lit up with battle intent. His figure turned into a stream of light and a majestic sword chi wrapped around his body as he dashed towards the snake deity. I'd like to see if you're really immortal. The serpent deity roared. A sound wave that felt like it was a solid substance quickly spread as it spat out a water column that contained an extremely powerful force towards Chu Kuangren. Just as Chu Kuangren was about to get close, the sword chi on his body suddenly dissipated and transformed into many sword chi clones. Chu Kuangren then took out the sacred emerald sword case. Countless treasured swords flew out and were distributed to the sword chi clones to attack the serpent deity together. The sky was filled with sword chi as it continuously slashed out. The battle between Chu Kuangren and the serpent deity was extremely intense. The entire ocean shook and tsunamis were set off. Even the islands thousands of miles away were affected, and some smaller islands could not escape the fate of being submerged. Clang! Guqin music rang out. Chu Kuangren sat cross-legged in the void with the descendant self-sword guarding beside him. The lingering song was placed horizontally in front of his knees, and a majestic Guqin Daoist rhyme erupted. The sixth movement of the 8 celestial demonic chords, raging waves crashing. The seventh movement of the 8 celestial demonic chords, heaven and earth reverberation. The final movement of the 8 celestial demonic chords, grand note of desolation. 3 terrifying Guqin music waves blasted towards the serpent deity along with waves of seawater. The terrifying energy caused the scales on the serpent deity to crack. Roar! The serpent deity let out a roar, and a terrifying Daoist rhyme that was infused with spiritual power swept out like a tsunami, shattering all the sword chi clones. Then, a large amount of seawater gushed out. Under the serpent deity's control, the seawater surrounded Chu Kuangren and formed a giant water prison that trapped him. The water prison was surrounded by an extremely powerful barrier. Chu Kuangren tried to break through it, but it was to no avail. At that moment, Chu Kuangren felt like he was in the deep sea. Let's see how you're going to fight me now. The serpent deity laughed and entered the water prison. At that moment, Chu Kuangren finally saw the serpent deity's full appearance. Its body was more than 1,000 feet long, and its entire body was greenish-black with a white abdomen. There was a single horn on its head, and there were some protruding spots on its back. Chu Kuangren knew that those were the serpent deity's hidden wings. The serpent deity was an ancient ferocious beast that loved to eat humans. It had a single horn on its head and a pair of wings on its back. It was a serpent beast that was on par with the 9-headed snakelet. Chapter 385. Die. The serpent deity let out a low growl, and the water in the water prison suddenly turned into invisible restraints that bound Chu Kuangren's limbs. Then, the serpent god charged forward. His physical strength was extremely terrifying. If he were to collide with him, even a mountain peak would be instantly smashed into pieces. Chu Kuangren being smashed into pieces by his tail was the best example. At that moment, a chi barrier appeared out of nowhere on Chu Kuangren's body. A large amount of water power was isolated, and the sword chi penetrated his body, shattering the water that was binding him. Then, his figure turned into a stream of light, dodging the serpent deity's attack. The snake god was a little surprised. You can actually break free? It should be known that even a great saint-level existence wouldn't be able to break free from the restraints of water that he had unleashed with his cultivation base. Yet Chu Kuangren, who was below the level of a sage, was able to break free so easily. That's not right, the energy shield on your body. Suddenly, the serpent deity noticed something. It looked at the force field on Chu Kuangren's body, and a look of realization flashed across its eyes. I see. I didn't expect you to have a treasure that can isolate the torrential force. He was very surprised, and at the same time, a little angry. The reason he activated this water prison was so that Chu Kuangren would have to fight underwater. That way, Chu Kuangren's combat strength would be greatly reduced. That way, he would be able to defeat his opponent faster. He didn't expect the other party to have an artifact that could isolate the flow of water. There are a lot of things that you can't imagine. Chu Kuangren sneered. The treasure he had on him that could block out the power of water was the water-repellent pearl. In the past, he had relied on this treasure to wreak havoc in the scaled tribe. He held the Descendant Self sword in his hand and activated his 3 Daoist forms, starting a new round of fierce battle with the serpent deity in the water. With his immortal body, he wasn't afraid of the serpent deity's attacks at all, and he fought it head-on. Heaven-slaying sword-drawing art, Tathagata rebirth mantra, heart-piercing finger, raging god's fist, and other monarch techniques were all used as they charged toward the serpent deity. This is too scary. He's not even a sage yet, but he has so many emperor techniques. Is he a monster? How did he do it? Monster. Also, what's with that immortal body? In the air, the island lords of the 36 oceanic islands were dumbfounded. They knew that Chu Kuangren was powerful, but they never expected him to be this powerful. One emperor technique after another, not to mention a sage, even an emperor might not necessarily have so many emperor techniques. This kid is indeed strong. No wonder he could shake the entire firmament star. However, no matter how strong he is, he can only be defeated by the serpent deity. The aquiline-nosed old man said lightly. When the other island masters heard this, they looked at the battle and agreed with him. No matter what kind of emperor technique Chu Kuangren cast, the serpent deity was able to withstand every single attack with its powerful physical body. At most, he would suffer some light injuries. The serpent deity, who had ruled the seas for so many years and was worshipped as a deity by the 36 islands, was undoubtedly powerful. The serpent deity could be said to be one of the most powerful beings in the entire firmament star. Even the unknown lands would not easily provoke them. Chu Kuangren, even someone like you will only end up as food for the serpent deity. You will pay the price for your arrogance. The talon-shaped nose old man stared coldly at Chu Kuangren. Inside the water prison, the battle between Chu Kuangren and the serpent deity was in full swing. One of them had an extremely powerful physical body that could withstand an emperor technique head-on. The other had an immortal body that made him fearless. This guy is really unimaginable. His battle prowess has actually reached such a level. I've never heard of such a thing since ancient times. If he's already this strong despite being below the level of a sage, doesn't that mean that he'll be invincible even without an emperor in the future? Terrifying. The serpent deity stared at Chu Kuangren, its yellow eyes filled with an unprecedented cold murderous intent. Against an enemy like Chu Kuangren, it would be a very scary thing if it did not finish him off as soon as possible. Even the serpent deity could not help but feel terrified when it thought of what Chu Kuangren would become in the future. This serpent deity is even harder to deal with than the 9-headed snakelet. Chu Kuangren frowned as he looked at the serpent deity. The 9-headed snakelet's physical body had been destroyed for many years, and it did not even have half of its original strength when it first came back to life. However, this serpent deity was a true sage ruler. Countless thoughts flashed through his mind. Should he use the soul retriever? No way. His opponent was a sage ruler. His soul was extremely powerful, and he was not injured either. His state of mind was at its peak. If he used the soul retriever, his spiritual power would be depleted before he could hook his opponent's soul out. Should he use the four-seasoned sword formation? That was unlikely. With his current strength, even if he used the strongest form of the four-seasoned sword formation, he would not be able to hurt his opponent. Not to mention that the force of water in this water prison would affect the sword formation, making it difficult for him to maximize its power. Young lad, your immortal body is indeed strange, but I can tell that your strength is limited even though you're immortal. I'll seal you into the deep sea and make you my prisoner. Then, I'll slowly figure out a way to kill you. The serpent deity said coldly as a large amount of Daoist rhymes surged from its body. The entire water prison merged into the sea, and at the same time, an extremely powerful force dragged Chu Kuangren into the deep sea. Not long after, Chu Kuangren was dragged hundreds of kilometers into the sea by the serpent deity and arrived at a huge oceanic trench. Within this oceanic trench, there were specks of light circulating. They were all crystals and supreme elixirs that emitted rich spiritual power. There was a large number of treasures in the sea here. You're surprised, aren't you? The sea is far more vast and mysterious than you can imagine. Even the scaled tribe, who are known as the rulers of the sea, have only explored the tip of the iceberg. However, I'm different. I'm the serpent deity. I'm the strongest existence in the sea. The sea is like my backyard. I can go wherever I want and take whatever I want. These are the treasures that I've collected from the sea. There's a coral tree that can double one's cultivation speed, a shell that can withstand heavenly lightning, a supreme elixir that can help one break through realms easily. The serpent deity excitedly showed Chu Kuangren its collection. It was not worried that Chu Kuangren could take these things away. To it, Chu Kuangren was already a sitting duck. The 36 oceanic islands sacrificed themselves to you for these treasures, right? Chu Kuangren said as he looked at the treasures in the oceanic trench. That's right. They've captured these sacrifices for me. If anyone performs well, I'll give them some of the treasures that I don't want. It's all thanks to me that the 36 oceanic islands can reach such heights today. The serpent deity laughed as it dragged Chu Kuangren towards the oceanic trench. Soon, they arrived at the deepest part of the oceanic trench. There was a huge cage that looked like a bird cage, and there were strange black patterns flowing on it. I obtained this cage 10,000 years ago. It must be a treasure left behind by a powerful cultivator. It has a terrifying sealing power that even a sage ruler would be sealed inside. Kid, you can stay in there for the rest of your life. The serpent deity laughed before it channeled a majestic torrential force and forcefully stuffed Chu Kuangren into the cage. Chapter 386. Rays of strange light blossomed from within the black cage, and the countless strange runes engraved on it began to circulate. A terrifying sealing force appeared. Chu Kuangren felt as if the spiritual power within his body was being suppressed. When he slashed with his sword, the power that he could display was actually not even a tenth of it. The rest was completely suppressed by the cage. That's not possible. This cage can even seal a holy king, let alone a small person like you who has yet to become a sage. The serpent deity looked at Chu Kuangren with its yellow eyes and smiled. Kid, you should also become part of my collection. You should feel honored to be able to spend the rest of your life with so many treasures. The serpent god laughed. I didn't expect you to be a collector. Chu Kuangren could not help but chuckle at the serpent deity's words. Brat, you're actually still able to laugh under such circumstances. I can't help but admire you. Do you really think that you can do whatever you want just because you have an undying body? You won't die, but there are many ways to torture people in this world. Don't worry, I will use them on you one by one. The serpent deity coiled its body and stared at Chu Kuangren with its huge yellow eyes, revealing a bloodthirsty, cruel, and murderous intent. He wanted to see fear on Chu Kuangren's face, but unfortunately, Chu Kuangren's gaze remained calm from the beginning to the end. It was like a cold pond, without ripples since ancient times. His eyes met the snake god's. The snake god was clearly the stronger party, but for some reason, he felt a little flustered. It's impossible for this fellow to escape from this cage. I must be overthinking things. I'll just lock him up here for now. The snake god thought to himself. Then, it turned around and was about to leave the trench. But at this moment, Chu Kuangren suddenly spoke from behind him. You have so many treasures here. Is there even a single emperor weapon? Upon hearing this, the serpent god was a little confused. Why are you still concerned about this at a time like this? Imperial weapons are hard to come by. How can they be so easily obtained? To be honest, I haven't found a single imperial weapon in the tens of thousands of years I've been in the deep sea. But what does that have to do with you? Snake God sneered. Sigh, what a pity. You'd better feel sorry for yourself. You're a great genius. You'll have to spend the rest of your days in the deep sea. You should feel honored. That's because you've never obtained an imperial armament in all these years. However, today, you're fortunate enough to experience one. Chu Kuangren said as he raised his hand and clenched the void. A golden trident appeared in Chu Kuangren's hand, and an incredibly terrifying emperor's aura spread across the ocean. The cage that imprisoned him was shaking violently. The runes on it cracked one by one, and the sealing power was constantly disintegrating. The serpent god's eyes widened. Imperial weapon. He was stunned. He did not expect Chu Kuangren to have an emperor weapon in his possession. An emperor weapon was extremely rare, even in the unknown lands. To think that Chu Kuangren had an emperor weapon in his possession. I'll show you the might of a monarch weapon. Chu Kuangren gripped the trident in his hand and struck it fiercely. A terrifying domineering aura suddenly exploded, causing the entire ocean to tremble violently. Countless streams of water surrounded Chu Kuangren, obeying his command as they continuously attacked the cage that was imprisoning him. Countless runes shattered one by one. In the end, with a loud bang, the cage that was imprisoning Chu Kuangren completely exploded, turning into pieces of debris that scattered everywhere. That's the Sea King's halberd. It's the Scaled Tribe's Sea King's halberd. Rumor has it that this emperor weapon was split into three and disappeared a long time ago. How did you get it? The serpent god was horrified. Having been in the ocean for so many years, he knew many of its secrets. Naturally, that included the rumors about the Scaled Tribe's Sea King's halberd. Even though he was a sage ruler, he was nothing in front of an emperor weapon. He did not expect Chu Kuangren to have such a precious treasure. He did not expect the emperor weapon to be the long-lost Sea King's halberd. I've never used this Sea King's halberd ever since I refined it. Today, I'll use you to test it out. Chu Kuangren said coldly. With the Sea King's halberd in hand, his aura increased exponentially. The seawater surged as if the entire ocean was cheering for him. At that moment, he no longer needed the water evasion pearl. Because the ocean no longer posed any threat to him. The power of the Sea King's halberd was to control the ocean. With the Sea King's halberd in hand, Chu Kuangren dashed towards the serpent god. His speed was 3 times faster than when he was on land. With a swing of the halberd, an endless torrential force surrounded it. It was as if the force of the entire ocean was imbued into the serpent god's body. Amidst the explosion, the serpent god's scales shattered and blood splattered everywhere. Since the beginning of the battle, this was the first time the serpent god had suffered a serious injury, and it was all from a single strike of the halberd. D****. So what if it's the Sea King's halberd? I'm the serpent god. The serpent god roared and let out a piercing shriek. Its Daoist rhyme was pushed to its limit as its 1,000-meter-long body tumbled in the ocean. A terrifying torrential force then slammed towards Chu Kuangren. That attack was incredibly shocking. Even a peak great sage would not be able to withstand it. However, Chu Kuangren held the trident halberd in his hand and pointed it at the incoming torrential force. A mysterious Daoist rhyme then emerged. Shatter. With a soft shout, that powerful torrential force suddenly dissipated. Wielding the Sea King's halberd means that I control the ocean. What can this bit of torrential force do to me? Chu Kuangren sneered and raised his hand to activate the Sea King's halberd. He then said, "I'll show you what the wrath of the ocean looks like." With a wave of the Sea King's halberd, the surrounding water surged and formed into a gigantic whirlpool that surrounded the serpent god. These whirlpools contained a powerful tearing force. Even the serpent god's powerful body could not help but crack in the whirlpools. Pieces of its scales broke and a large amount of blood gushed out. The serpent god let out a shrill scream. It looked at Chu Kuangren in horror. The emperor weapon's power was too terrifying. Even a sage ruler like it could not fight against it. If this went on, it would be the serpent god that would be buried in the ocean. Run! The serpent god let out a low roar before the horn on its head unleashed an intense Daoist rhyme. The whirlpools around it were temporarily sealed by that surge of energy. Then, a pair of fleshy wings spread out from the serpent god's back before it flew towards the ocean. Trying to escape? No way. A cold glare shot out from Chu Kuangren's eyes. If I don't strip your snakeskin and turn it into a gunny sack, I'm not Chu Kuangren anymore. Torrential force emerged from beneath his feet and propelled him towards the ocean surface to chase after the serpent god. Above the ocean, the 36 oceanic chieftains and the talon-shaped nose old man were staring at the ocean surface with bewildered expressions. This was because they had just felt a powerful surge of Emperor's aura, and then the entire ocean started to surge. It was a terrifying sight to behold. That surge of energy must be the serpent god's doing. Chu Kuangren has offended the serpent god, so he must die. That's right. It must be the serpent god. The chieftains said with anticipation in their eyes. At that moment, a huge black shadow appeared on the ocean surface. The serpent god with wings on its back had suddenly emerged from the ocean surface. The serpent god. It's the serpent god. Chapter 387. The serpent deity broke out of the sea and soared into the sky. The people of the 36 oceanic islands could not help but exclaim. It's the serpent deity. It's the serpent deity. However, they soon realized that something was not right. It was too pathetic. The serpent deity was in a pathetic state. Its scales were broken, and there were cracks all over its body. Large amounts of blood were dripping from it. It was their first time seeing the serpent deity in such a state. They were all dumbfounded. Needless to say, the person who caused the serpent deity to be in such a state must be Chu Kuangren. The people could not believe that Chu Kuangren could force the serpent deity into such a state. What did he do? The talon-shaped nose old man gulped. He initially wanted to use the serpent deity's strength to kill Chu Kuangren, but it seemed like he had made the wrong decision. Not to mention using the serpent deity's strength to kill Chu Kuangren, it seemed like the serpent deity could not even protect itself now. Was Chu Kuangren really that terrifying? Boom! At that moment, the ocean shook. A giant water pillar shot into the sky, and Chu Kuangren was standing on top of it with his trident in hand. He stared coldly at the serpent deity that was flying towards the clouds. With a swing of his trident, multiple water pillars erupted and shot into the sky like water dragons that coiled around the serpent deity. The serpent god roared and used its powerful body to charge around, shattering the streams of water. However, even if it could break the water pillars, it could not get too far away from the ocean, let alone escape. B****, let me leave. Do you really want to fight me to the death? The serpent deity let out a sharp roar. The people of the 36 oceanic islands were shocked to hear that. They felt goosebumps all over their bodies. The serpent deity was trying to escape. It was trying to escape from Chu Kuangren. This news was too shocking to them. To the people of the 36 oceanic islands, the serpent deity was their god. It could be said that without the serpent deity, the 36 oceanic islands would not have developed to where they were today. Hence, they respected the serpent deity like a god. Even the sages listened to the serpent deity. Yet now, their deity was trying to escape from Chu Kuangren. It was just too unbelievable. This almost caused their worldview to collapse. A life and death struggle? You're not fit to fight me to the death. I've said that I'll skin you alive and turn you into a sack, so you must die here. Chu Kuangren sneered as he activated the Empyrean Neptune's trident halberd. Streams of even more majestic water surged toward the serpent god. The entire sea was boiling, and countless sea creatures were trembling. That was Chu Kuangren's rage. Now, it was also the anger of the entire ocean. Bastard! You forced me to do this. The infuriated serpent deity roared, and the Daoist rhymes on its body exploded. Its yellow eyes gradually became bloodshot, and a terrifying murderous aura erupted from the serpent deity, sweeping in all directions. Oh, forcefully using a secret technique to increase your strength? So what? Chu Kuangren sneered. Disregarding external factors, Chu Kuangren only had a 10% chance of winning against the serpent deity. However, with the Empyrean Neptune's halberd, his chances of winning had skyrocketed to almost 100%. This was the terror of a monarch weapon. Roar! The serpent deity let out a shrill roar, and a powerful Daoist rhyme spread out, shattering a giant water column. Then, it dashed toward a certain direction. That was where the elusive mirage was located. The serpent deity knew very well that even if it used some kind of secret technique, it was still no match for Chu Kuangren with the Empyrean Neptune's trident halberd. Hence, it decided to use the hundreds of thousands of cultivators and civilians on the elusive mirage as a threat to force Chu Kuangren to let it leave. It believed that humans were all hypocrites. Especially a righteous person like Chu Kuangren. He would definitely be threatened, especially when there were 3,000 young boys and girls on the elusive mirage. Oh no, the serpent deity is here. The hundreds of thousands of cultivators and civilians on the elusive mirage were terrified. However, when the serpent deity approached, it crashed into an invisible barrier that blocked him outside. Although the elusive mirage was shaken, it was unharmed. The hundreds of thousands of people on it were also unharmed. How could this be? The serpent deity was dumbfounded. The serpent deity was well aware of his own strength. Even 10 mountains would have been obliterated by that one crash, yet it was blocked by the elusive mirage's defensive barrier. How could the elusive mirage's defensive formation be so terrifying? Humph, what a fool. Chu Kuangren snorted. The elusive mirage was a top-notch starlight-grade item, and the defensive formation on it was also a top-notch sage-grade formation. Moreover, it did not require Chu Kuangren to control it. As long as the elusive mirage had enough power, it would be able to unleash its full potential. Although the serpent deity was powerful, it could not break through this sage-grade formation. Now, die. Chu Kuangren let out a low roar, and blood-red flames suddenly ignited on his body. The 9 deaths blazing blood art, activated. Chu Kuangren channeled a large amount of spiritual power into the Empyrean Neptune's trident halberd, allowing him to summon more oceanic force. A large amount of water gushed out from the ocean and gradually formed into a ferocious and powerful water dragon in the sky. The water dragon was tens of thousands of meters long, and its terrifying domineering aura filled the air. Every cultivator at the scene, including sages like the talon-shaped nose old man, trembled in fear. In front of the water dragon, the serpent deity's 1,000-meter body seemed tiny. No, no. The serpent deity was terrified. After devouring countless living beings for so many years, the serpent deity, who had always been fearful of others, finally felt fear. An unprecedented sense of fear. Die! Chu Kuangren waved his halberd, and the water dragon roared and swallowed the serpent deity with a surge of water pressure. The serpent deity, who had always eaten others, swallowed something else for the first time in its life. Meanwhile, inside the water dragon's body, the terrifying water waves ravaged and destroyed its body. Its scales, bones, and flesh were all broken, and a large amount of fresh blood dyed the water dragon red. In the end, the water dragon collapsed and fell back into the ocean, causing a huge explosion and a huge tsunami to spread in all directions. Meanwhile, the serpent deity was floating on the surface of the ocean. With the Empyrean Neptune's halberd in hand, Chu Kuangren approached the serpent deity. "Kid, you're too much of a monster. This world will never tolerate you. Your fate will be 1,000,000 times worse than mine." The serpent deity looked at Chu Kuangren and said in a hoarse voice, "I was the one who couldn't tolerate this world, but now, I can't tolerate you either." Chu Kuangren snorted and unleashed the soul retriever. The chain pierced into the serpent deity's body and slowly pulled out its soul, which had become extremely weak due to the imminent death of its physical body. "Enjoy the agony of the soul." Chu Kuangren gently tugged on the soul retriever, and a surge of chilling yin energy erupted, continuously eroding the serpent deity's soul. A shrill scream reverberated through the air, and finally, the serpent deity's soul shattered into countless soul light dots. Just as these soul light dots were about to vanish, Chu Kuangren activated his universal cauldron physique and absorbed these soul light dots into his body. The universal cauldron physique could absorb all kinds of strange energies between heaven and earth. Souls were also a type of strange energy. Chapter 388. Even in a weakened state, a sage ruler's soul energy was still extremely majestic. Just like the demonic liquid, this energy was stored within Chu Kuangren's body, waiting for him to form the supreme sage foundation level in the future. After that, Chu Kuangren tossed the serpent deity's corpse into his yin and yang ring. Including the 9-headed snakelet from before, Chu Kuangren now had 2 sage ruler corpses in his possession. Not to mention the boundary emperor's body that he had obtained from the unnamed island. These were all important materials for him to form the supreme sage foundation level in the future. Now, only you are left. Chu Kuangren looked at the chieftains of the 36 oceanic islands. His eyes were as cold as ice and filled with murderous intent. The chieftains of the 36 oceanic islands wanted to leave but found that they could not move. "Chu Kuangren, what do you want?" The hook-nosed old man gulped and said. Since even the serpent deity had been killed by Chu Kuangren, none of them dared to challenge Chu Kuangren at all. Too terrifying, this young man in front of him was too terrifying. Throughout the ages, there wasn't a single person like him. "All of you, kill yourselves," Chu Kuangren said indifferently. Hearing this, everyone's pupils shrank. "Chu Kuangren, please spare us." One of the island lords begged for mercy. "That's right, Chu Kuangren. We have no enmity with you, so there's no need for you to become enemies with us for the sake of these commoners. The 36 islands have many sages as well. Chu Kuangren, do you really have to go this far?" The chieftains of the 36 oceanic islands spoke one after another. Chu Kuangren said indifferently, "If you kill yourselves now, your orthodoxies may be spared. If you resist, the 36 oceanic islands shall perish in the ocean." As soon as Chu Kuangren finished speaking, the entire ocean began to roar and surge, setting off huge waves as if it was responding to his words. With the Empyrean Neptune's halberd in his hand, Chu Kuangren was the ruler of the ocean. No one beneath the Emperor realm could fight him at sea. Since the 36 oceanic islands were located in the outer seas, Chu Kuangren was no longer afraid of the bottomless chasm. Hearing his words, the chieftains of the 36 oceanic islands turned ashen. After witnessing Chu Kuangren's capabilities, none of them doubted Chu Kuangren's words. He truly had the ability to do it. Chu Kuangren, are you sure you won't even give us a chance? An island lord said unwillingly. Swoosh, at that moment, a white figure dashed towards Chu Kuangren at a speed no slower than a sage. It was the White Smoke Island Lord. His originally benevolent face was now filled with malevolence. With a dagger in his hand, he swung it at Chu Kuangren. That dagger contained some kind of poison that could even kill a sage. Chu Kuangren, die. The White Smoke Island Lord said in a frenzy. However, Chu Kuangren narrowed his eyes and moved the Empyrean Neptune's halberd in his hand. A powerful torrent of water burst forth, forming a huge water ball that enveloped White Smoke Island Lord. No matter how hard White Smoke Island Lord struggled, it was all to no avail. He was like a drowning man, flailing his arms and legs about as if he was trying to grab onto something. Chu Kuangren reached his hand into the water ball and grabbed the dagger in his opponent's hand. Then, he slowly stabbed it into his opponent's chest. The poison erupted, and White Smoke Island Lord's face instantly turned purple. Blood flowed from all 7 of his orifices, and he breathed his last within moments. In the end, he died under his own poisonous blade. Which island does he belong to? Chu Kuangren asked. The other island lords looked at each other. In the end, one of the island lords could no longer withstand the terrifying pressure that filled the void. With a trembling voice, he said, "Bye. White Smoke Island. White Smoke Island. I understand now." The crowd was puzzled, not knowing what Chu Kuangren was trying to do. However, he suddenly closed his eyes, and his spiritual thought spread out like a tidal wave. With the help of the Empyrean Neptune's halberd, not only could his spiritual thought see the entire ocean, but he could even hear the sounds of the ocean. Soon, he locked onto the location of White Smoke Island. It looked like an immortal island, but under the coverage of Chu Kuangren's spiritual thoughts, he could see that the inside of the island was filthy. The cultivators were all scheming against each other, and some were even cultivating various evil techniques. He even saw an elder using children to refine medicinal pills. An immortal island? No, it was a demonic den. A demonic den that was even more evil than the other demonic orthodoxies. Perish! Chu Kuangren said calmly. That one sentence set off a terrifying tsunami from thousands of kilometers away, rushing towards White Smoke Island. The cultivators of White Smoke Island were terrified when they sensed it. What's going on? The White Smoke Island sage rushed out and looked at the gigantic tsunami in horror. Quick, activate the island's protective formation. The White Smoke Island sage yelled. A gigantic white light barrier enveloped White Smoke Island. However, it was useless. Under the terrifying tsunami, White Smoke Island's protective formation was like a bubble. The moment it came into contact with the tsunami, it shattered and vanished into thin air. The entire White Smoke Island was submerged in the ocean. In just a few breaths' time, the island was destroyed, and countless disciples were killed by the tsunami. The White Smoke Island sage was not faring well either. He was severely injured by the tsunami. His hair was disheveled, and he spat out mouthfuls of blood. He stared at the ocean before him with hatred. Why? What did White Smoke Island do wrong? Serpent deity, why didn't you protect us? He would never have guessed that White Smoke Island was in such dire straits just because the White Smoke Island Lord wanted to live. The serpent deity that he spoke of had died under Chu Kuangren's halberd. One tsunami, and White Smoke Island was no more. And all of this was because of a single thought from Chu Kuangren, who was thousands of kilometers away. The destruction of White Smoke Island had attracted the attention of the other 36 oceanic island sages. One by one, their spiritual thoughts searched the ocean, trying to find the cause of the tsunami. In the serpent deity's oceanic domain, the talon-shaped nose old man opened his eyes in horror. White Smoke Island is gone. The remaining chieftains were terrified to the core. Their bodies trembled as they stared at Chu Quanren as if he was a demon. They knew that it was all Chu Quanren's doing. With the divine Neptune's halberd in hand, Chu Quanren was like a deity that could control the entire ocean. He could even destroy an island from thousands of kilometers away. Chu Quanren, you're a demon. You destroyed White Smoke Island for these sacrifices. That's hundreds of thousands of lives. One of the chieftains could not help but ask. So what? The serpent deity's sacrificial ceremony has been held many times, hasn't it? The number of people you've sacrificed to the serpent deity is more than millions. Chu Quanren said coldly. None of the chieftains could refute his words. I'll give you one last chance. Kill yourselves, or I'll unleash a few more tsunamis. Chu Quanren said indifferently. All of you, kill yourselves. At that moment, a voice came from the void. One of the chieftains' expression changed. It's a sage. Kill yourselves. Kill yourselves. One voice after another rang out from the void. Those were the voices of the 36 oceanic island sages. With each voice, the chieftains' faces turned paler. In the end, their faces were drained of all color, and their hearts were dead silent. Even their sages wanted them dead. Chapter 389. Kill yourself. Kill yourself, voices rang out one after another in the air. These were all the sages of the 36 oceanic islands. They had already investigated the whole story and were terrified of Chu Quanren's power. In order to protect their orthodoxies, they had no choice but to let these chieftains commit suicide. The chieftains of the 36 oceanic islands were pale and bloodless. If Chu Quanren wanted them dead, they would only feel resentful. But now, their own sages wanted them to die, and they felt a sense of sorrow from the depths of their souls. It turned out that the greatest pain did not come from the enemy. Instead, it was the betrayal of their own people. Chu Quanren, I admit defeat this time. If anything happens to Green Jade Island, I'll haunt you even if I become a ghost. The Lord of Green Jade Island laughed out loud. His body exuded a strong sense of sorrow. Following that, his body expanded abruptly. With a loud explosion, the Lord of Green Jade Island turned into a mist of blood that filled the sky. Seeing this, the rest of the island masters showed signs of struggle in their eyes. However, under such circumstances, resistance was useless. Chu Quanren wanted them dead. The saint wanted them dead. How could they, the Supremes, resist? He might as well be more straightforward. Chu Quanren, if you dare to harm a single hair on my Peony Island, I won't let you go either. The island lord of Peony Island shouted coldly. Then, with a delicate shout, she also self-detonated after the island lord of Cyan Jade Island. Chu Quanren, I shall seek revenge on you in my next life. I never thought I would end up like this. Ridiculous, ridiculous. One after another, the island masters self-destructed. There were also those who were indignant and wanted to escape. One of the island masters turned into a stream of light and flew into the distance. However, he was slapped back by a majestic palm chi. That palm chi did not come from Chu Quanren but from a sage. Kill yourself. Don't force me to take action. The saint's cold voice came from the void. The island master's heart was like dead ashes. In the end, he could only clench his teeth and self-detonate. Very soon, the 36 island masters were all dead. As Chu Quanren witnessed the scene unfold, he too suffered the curses of some of the chieftains before they died. However, his expression did not change from the beginning to the end. Chu Kuangren, let's end this matter here. The voice of a saint resounded from the void of space. Hee, ha ha ha. Chu Kuangren suddenly held his forehead and let out a burst of laughter. The sages did not know what he meant. Sage, this is a sage? Everyone in the world says that a saint is the pillar of orthodoxy. Today is the first time I've seen a saint forcing his own people to die. Is this the so-called saint, the so-called pillar of heaven? Huh. It's so funny. The sages fell silent. In other words, they were so angry that they couldn't speak. On the surface of the ocean, only Chu Kuangren's maniacal laughter and the hundreds of thousands of cultivators and commoners were left in shock. Chu Kuangren laughed so hard that tears were about to come out of his eyes. Enough! The furious voice of a sage came from the void. Chu Kuangren's laughter was extremely piercing to their ears, and every single word he said was like a stab to their hearts. It was obvious that Chu Kuangren was the one who forced her to do this. In the end, he was still making fun of them. This was the so-called killing one's heart. Chu Kuangren's laughter gradually subsided, and the surface of the sea also gradually calmed down. He kept his Empyrean Neptune's halberd, turned around, and dashed towards the elusive mirage. Before he left, he was still mumbling something. A voice echoed in the air. A sage? F***CKU sages. Those words were heard by the sages of the 36 oceanic islands. Many sages' Daoist core almost collapsed on the spot. On one of the islands, a terrifying aura erupted, and a mountain range was forcefully shattered. An old man walked out from it, staring into the distance with bloodshot eyes. His expression was as ferocious as a demon. Chu Kuangren, he gritted his teeth in extreme hatred. However, when he thought of Chu Kuangren's terrifying strength, a sense of helplessness welled up in his heart, and it was mixed with anger. The more he thought about it, the angrier he became. In the end, he spat out a mouthful of blood and almost fainted. How can such a person exist in this world? In the 36 oceanic islands, there was more than one sage who spat out blood like the old man, and some of them even had their Daoist core collapsed. Chu Kuangren, goddamn Chu Kuangren. Ah, Chu Kuangren, you will die a horrible death. I hate you. Dear heavens, why do you allow someone like Chu Kuangren to exist in this world? He is an anomaly that cannot be tolerated by the heavens. Even the serpent deity was killed by him. What a pity. The 36 oceanic islands' disciples were extremely confused. Why did the sages, who were rarely seen, suddenly unleash such intense energy fluctuations? Moreover, there was also a sense of helplessness and anger in those fluctuations. Who was it? Who made the sages so angry but helpless? On this day, the entire ocean was in turmoil. Chu Kuangren returned to the elusive mirage. Hundreds of thousands of cultivators were excited and looked at him with admiration. However, he ignored them and went straight to a room, where he activated the seal that was previously placed in that room. When he was done, Chu Kuangren's face turned pale, and his body went limp as he sat on the bed. F***CK Emperor weapons really shouldn't be used so casually. Chu Kuangren took a deep breath and said. While imperial armaments were very powerful, the burden of forcibly using them with his cultivation was not to be looked down upon. Just this time, he had almost exhausted all of his spiritual power. However, his spiritual power was secondary. After all, his gluttonous devouring technique could convert blood and flesh essences to quickly recover, but it was more of a burden on his mind. Using an emperor weapon was equivalent to using the emperor's aura, which was a huge challenge to a cultivator's Daoist rhyme, Daoist core, and spiritual will. I'm lucky to be able to fool them this time. Chu Kuangren took a deep breath and murmured. He took out a few medicinal pills and consumed them to recover his spiritual power. As for his mind, both his mind and spiritual thoughts originated from his soul, and there were very few soul techniques on Firmament Star. Soul power could only be improved through the improvement of one's cultivation realm, so even Chu Kuangren could only wait for his recovery. There were some treasures that could improve soul power, but those were extremely rare, and Chu Kuangren did not have them yet. Chu Kuangren spent 3 days recovering his spiritual power, and the rest of the time was used to recover his mind. It was not until 3 days later that Chu Kuangren finally walked out of his room. As soon as he walked out, he was met with hundreds of thousands of cultivators who knelt on the ground when they saw him. "Thank you, Sect Leader Chu, for saving our lives. Thank you, Sect Leader Chu, for saving our lives." Hundreds of thousands of people knelt in front of Chu Kuangren and looked at him emotionally. The 3,000 young boys and girls did not cry anymore. Instead, they knelt on the ground with the adults around them and looked at Chu Kuangren with curiosity in their clear eyes. "Get up, everyone," Chu Kuangren said calmly. When he saw that some of them were injured, he casually cast the spring breeze healing technique. As the spring breeze blew, some of the injured people began to recover. Chapter 390. With Chu Kuangren's help, some of the injured cultivators began to recover. Then, Chu Kuangren asked, "Who's from the Four Seas Merchant Guild?" "We're the escorts from the guild." At that moment, a few people walked out one after another. Chu Kuangren glanced at them and said, "All right, send a message to Boss Qian. Tell him to wait for me at a nearby prefecture." "Boss Qian? Which Boss Qian?" The few of them looked at each other. With their status, they didn't even know Qian Fugue, the head manager behind the scenes of the Chamber of Commerce, let alone contact him. "Forget it, I'll talk to him myself," Chu Kuangren said. Then, he looked at the bottom of the sea with a glint in his eyes. He licked his lips and dived deeper into the sea. With the help of the water evasion pearl, he soon arrived at the trench where the serpent deity hid his treasures. Looking at the countless treasures in the sea, he smiled. "Serpent deity, I'll gladly accept this." These sea treasures had been plundered by the serpent deity over the years. They were too valuable. Even if all the resources of the 36 islands were added up, they might not be able to match up to half of these treasures. This was definitely one of the largest treasure vaults in the Firmament Star. Chu Kuangren searched the trench and threw the treasures into his yin and yang ring. The rewards were unimaginable. What's this?" Suddenly, Chu Kuangren looked at the light blue, coral-like supreme treasure herb in his hand. He could not help but feel surprised. There were many treasures in the sea that he did not recognize. The reason why he paid attention to this supreme treasure herb was because it gave him a strange fluctuation. Whenever he got close to it, he would feel refreshed. That feeling seemed to originate from his soul. Could this supreme treasure herb have an effect on the soul? Chu Kuangren's eyes lit up. Even an alchemy grandmaster like me can't recognize this supreme treasure herb. Then, he used his treasure locating skill to sense it. He found out the name of this supreme treasure herb. Soul Nourishing Herb. Soul nourishing, it seemed like it really was a supreme treasure herb that had an effect on the soul. Chu Kuangren carefully put it away. After a round of looting, Chu Kuangren left in satisfaction. He returned to the elusive mirage and left the sea with the others. In a Dao province outside the sea, Qian Fugue had long received Chu Kuangren's message, so he had brought some people to wait here. When they saw the gigantic elusive mirage, they immediately went up to greet it. Sect Leader Chu. Qian Fugue glanced at the hundreds of thousands of people behind Chu Kuangren, especially the 3,000 young boys and girls. A hint of anger flashed across his eyes. That serpent god and the 36 islands are truly despicable. They would even lay their hands on children. Qian Fugue cursed. He had also learned about the matter of sacrificing the serpent god. "I've already obtained the cloud flow ore. Thank you, Boss Qian. Also, I'll leave these people to you. Chu Kuangren said. No problem. Leave it to me. Qian Fugui patted his chest and said. He had many connections and channels, and his business was spread all over the country. It was easy for him to settle these people down. All right, that's all for now. Chu Kuangren nodded and was about to leave. Take care, benefactor. Farewell, benefactor. Farewell, benefactor. The hundreds of thousands of people and cultivators behind Chu Kuangren said. The 3,000 young boys and girls looked at Chu Kuangren's departing figure with yearning in their eyes. One of the boys said, in the future, I want to become a powerful cultivator like you, benefactor. I want to protect everyone. Me too. Me too. Black Heaven Sect. Chu Kuangren went into a busy state the moment he returned. The Cloud Flow Ore and Celestial Chalcedony were already in place. All that was left was to set up the astonishing Cloud of Seas formation. However, this formation was extremely mysterious. Even with the blueprint, he had only managed to set up a tenth of it after a few days. This formation is too mysterious, and I don't know much about it. Besides, there aren't many people in the Black Heaven sect who know how to set up formations. This is going to be difficult. Chu Kuangren shook his head. He did not want to look for people in the outside world. If he did that, he could not guarantee that they would not leak the core secrets of the formation. Just like that, Chu Kuangren studied the formation by himself while he set up the astonishing Cloud of Seas formation. Fortunately, he had an amazing level of comprehension. Under such circumstances, he was able to learn by himself and improve by leaps and bounds. The speed at which he set up the formation increased. About a month later, he had completed the astonishing Cloud of Seas formation. It's finally done. Chu Kuangren stood on top of a mountain peak. His spiritual thoughts surged and covered a radius of 10,000 kilometers around the Black Heaven sect. Within 10,000 kilometers, every node of the astonishing Cloud of Seas formation could be seen. As long as he gave the command, this Emperor-grade formation could be activated. With this formation around, the safety of the Black Heaven sect can be guaranteed. Chu Kuangren smiled in satisfaction as he felt a weight lifted off his shoulders. He was now at the cusp of the storm, and he could be targeted by the unknown lands at any time. It would not have mattered if he was alone, but he could not. He still had the Black Heaven sect behind him. If the unknown lands attacked the Black Heaven sect, it would be difficult for the Black Heaven sect to defend themselves. Now that he had this formation, he could deal with the unknown lands easily even if they attacked. Let's do a lucky draw to celebrate. Chu Kuangren grinned. Congratulations, host. You've obtained the legendary item, Elysium Emperor Scripture. Another Emperor Scripture. Chu Kuangren's eyes lit up. He looked at his inventory and then set up a few restrictions around it before retrieving the Emperor Scripture. In an instant, a thick Emperor's aura spread out. However, because of the restrictions that Chu Kuangren had set up, it did not spread out. He began to flip through the Emperor Scripture. This is, a Talisman Emperor Scripture? Chu Kuangren was slightly surprised. The Elysium Emperor Scripture came from an emperor known as the Great Elysium Emperor. This Great Elysium Emperor used talismans to become an emperor, so the Emperor Scriptures that he left behind were mostly related to various kinds of runes. Chu Kuangren had long studied the Tao of runes. He knew how mysterious it was, and he had always been looking forward to it. Now that he had this Emperor Scripture, he could learn it. In the following days, Chu Kuangren went into closed-door meditation again. Until 3 days later. Firmament Star suddenly trembled. A giant palace suddenly appeared out of thin air. After various investigations, it was found that this palace was related to the Qian Emperor. The Qian Emperor was the last emperor recorded in Firmament Star. Now that a palace that was related to him had appeared, the entire Firmament Star was shaken. Many people rushed over to investigate. Even the unknown lands could not resist such temptation. The Qian Emperor Palace has finally appeared. The rumors are true. The emperors really did leave behind all kinds of opportunities of fortune in Firmament Star. When the time is right, they will appear one by one. This era of great battles is reaching its peak. Opportunities don't come again. The Qian Emperor Palace is the first emperor's opportunity of fortune. Whoever can occupy it first will have the advantage in the subsequent emperor's opportunities of fortune. This palace must not be missed. The unknown lands began to make their moves. All the Empyrean walkers flocked to the Qian Emperor Palace. Inside the Black Heaven sect, Chu Kuangren had also come out from his closed-door meditation. Chapter 391. The Qian Emperor Palace has reappeared. Chu Kuangren took out the jade amulet that he got from Yuan Wudao. The jade amulet was glowing faintly. Chu Kuangren looked into the distance, knowing that the Qian Emperor Palace had reappeared. The unknown lands must have made their move long ago. Looks like I'll have to join in the fun as well. Chu Kuangren held the jade amulet in his hand and said. Before he left, he called Elder Ruyan over. Ruyan, I've set up a large formation in the Black Heaven sect. I'll pass you the method to activate it. If anyone from the Black Heaven sect comes to invade and you guys can't handle it, just activate it, Chu Kuangren said. He did not want his home to be invaded while he was away. Elder Ruyan nodded. All right. She was quite surprised. This sect leader knows how to set up formations. However, Chu Kuangren knew quite a few things. Now that he knew how to set up a formation, it was not something that Elder Ruyan could not accept. However, the Black Heaven sect already had a mountain guarding formation, and it was an extremely rare sage-grade formation. Could the formation that Chu Kuangren had set up be more powerful than a sage-grade formation? Elder Ruyan was doubtful. Chu Kuangren passed the method to activate the formation to Elder Ruyan. After some thought, he said, how about this, I'll demonstrate it to you first. Chu Kuangren took out a stone tablet that was carved with celestial chalcedony. It was as clear as jade, and it was the key to activate the formation. There were markings on the stone tablet. They were the major nodes of the astonishing cloud of seas formation. He channeled his spiritual thoughts into the stone tablet. Soon, the nodes of the astonishing cloud of seas formation lit up, and the entire Black Heaven sect shook. Clouds and mist appeared out of thin air and enveloped the entire Black Heaven sect. Countless Daoist rhymes circulated like a soaring dragon in the sea of clouds. Elder Ruyan was a little dumbfounded. Just by looking at it, she could already tell that this formation was extraordinary. Through the stone tablet, she could see some of the stages of the astonishing cloud of seas formation. It was either a trap or a kill. It was extremely mysterious. This formation was not as simple as a sage-grade formation. Was this really set up by the sect leader? It was too powerful. With this formation, the Black Heaven sect will be even more secure. Elder Ruyan said excitedly. Others might not know, but she had been helping Chu Kuangren with the sect's internal affairs, so she knew quite a lot about the unknown lands. She knew very well what kind of situation Chu Kuangren and the Black Heaven sect were in, and with the help of this formation, she felt much more at ease. I'll leave the array to you. I'll leave first. Take care, sect master. In a flash, Chu Kuangren's figure turned into a stream of light and left. At this time, there was a sea of people outside the glorious Qian Imperial Palace. Surrounding the Qian Imperial Palace was a mysterious sealing power that enveloped the entire Qian Imperial Palace like a large net. But at this moment, the net was collapsing on its own. This sealing power should have been left behind by the Qian Emperor. The Qian Emperor must have calculated this timing to allow the Imperial Palace to appear. As such, this sealing power would naturally be useless. A saint said. This person came from the unknown lands. He looked at the arch palace with a fanatical look in his eyes. An emperor's opportunity of fortune. This can be said to be the greatest and most unimaginable opportunity of fortune in the recent 150,000 years. Whoever obtains the arch palace will definitely have a meteoric rise. The sealing net gradually disappeared. The moment the net disappeared, a few sages flew towards the imperial palace, but they were repelled by an invisible barrier. What's going on? Didn't the sealing power disappear? The sages were a little surprised. At this time, a few golden words appeared in the void. Anyone below the sage level can enter. What does this mean? Sages can't enter? What kind of stupid rule is this? F***ck, are we going to come here for nothing? Some of the sages were very unwilling. They had been sages for many years, and now they were looking forward to becoming emperors. Although they knew that the emperor's opportunity of fortune was not in their generation, how could they give it up so easily when the unprecedented emperor's opportunity of fortune was right in front of them? I don't care. I must obtain this emperor's opportunity of fortune. One of the sages said unwillingly. His body surged with powerful sage Daoist rhymes as he charged towards the Qian imperial palace. However, the harder he tried, the stronger the invisible barrier became. It violently repelled him and smashed him onto the ground. That scene left everyone speechless. To many, a sage was already the pinnacle of powerhouses. However, a barrier left behind by an emperor from hundreds of thousands of years ago was enough to make a sage suffer. An emperor was truly unimaginable. It's useless. The Qian imperial palace's intention is very clear. His inheritance will only be left for future generations of skyprides. One of the sages said faintly. He then looked at the skyprides from various major forces with a hint of envy in his eyes. They could only say that they were born in the wrong era. Shuizheng, you must be careful when you enter the imperial palace this time. You must take good care of that jade amulet. It will be very useful in the imperial palace, the ethereal rapture sage reminded Shuizheng. Yes. Shuizheng nodded solemnly. The other forces were also giving their skyprides their advice. In Acheron Manor's camp. Wudao, although you lost your jade amulet, the imperial palace's opportunity of fortune is still here. Once you're inside, act according to the situation. Remember, don't act impulsively again, Black Willow Sage said to Yuan Wudao. Yes. Yuan Wudao nodded. His current state was a little strange. Chu Quanren had chopped off one of his arms in the demonic hoarder forefather's secret realm, but now he had a new arm. However, his new arm was wrapped in bandages and emanated an ominous aura. The group of skyprides entered the Qian imperial palace one after another. Among them, the Empyrean walkers were the most eye-catching. To many, the biggest opportunity of fortune in the imperial palace would most likely be obtained by one of the Empyrean walkers. After all, no matter how powerful the skyprides from the other orthodoxies were, they could at most fight against honorables and supreme honorables. However, these Empyrean walkers could fight against sages. They were no longer skyprides of the same level. The reappearance of the Qian imperial palace proves that our previous guess is correct. The emperors have indeed left behind all kinds of opportunities of fortune. Some of the unknown land sages gathered together. One of the sages said. The other sages' eyes lit up when they heard that. Looks like the act of burning the books and hiding the emperors was not in vain. Now that we're the only ones who have the records of the emperors, it'll be a great help in the fight for the emperor's opportunity of fortune in the future. That's right. Now it all depends on the skypride's luck. The biggest opportunity of fortune in the Qian imperial palace belongs to the heavenly golden palace. Suddenly, a voice rang out. An old man walked over with a majestic gait. The Empyrean walkers of the heavenly golden palace aren't weak, but our Empyrean walkers aren't to be trifled with. Oh, are you that confident, purple void sage? If the heavenly golden imperial physique fails in the imperial palace, don't turn on me. The sages looked displeased when they saw the old man. Let's wait and see. Purple void sage's face was filled with pride. He had great confidence in Xiao Lintian. Below the level of sages, there were not many Empyrean walkers who could stand up to him. Look, it's him. At this moment, there was a commotion from the crowd. Outside the imperial palace, a person was walking through the air. He was dressed in a wide-sleeved white robe with a beautiful ancient sword hanging from his waist. He had a celestial appearance and a charming demeanor. Many of the sages narrowed their eyes when they saw this person. Chapter 392. Chu Kuangren stepped through the air and arrived. He was dressed in a wide-sleeved white robe and his black hair cascaded down like a waterfall. The pupils of everyone couldn't help but constrict when they saw him. Chu Kuangren is here. Damn it, this Qian Imperial Palace, he also wants to join in the fun. If he goes in, what chance does the others have? Play my ass. There's no way to play. Everyone discussed in low voices. To everyone, Chu Kuangren was no longer on the same level as the other Sky Prides. There was no comparison between the two of them. If he were to enter the Imperial Palace, he would be able to sweep everyone. D***, we must not let him in. Otherwise, with Chu Kuangren's abilities, this emperor's opportunity of fortune might very well be taken by him. The saints of the unknown lands looked at each other. One of the sages stood in front of Chu Kuangren and smiled. I didn't expect Brother Chu to join in the fun. Chu Kuangren glared at him. Get out of my way. The sage still had no intention of giving way. He only smiled and said, Brother Chu, you're in charge of an orthodoxy, and you're the sect master of an orthodoxy. It's not very nice for you to fight with a bunch of juniors. Junior? Heh, I have to hand it to you. You're a sage, but you don't even think before you speak. Come to think of it, I'm of the same generation as them. Of course, my status is higher than theirs, but my age is about the same. Chu Kuangren sneered. When they were beating him up, they didn't remember that he was a junior. Now that they were stopping him from entering the Emperor Palace, they remembered it. Chu Kuangren, are you really going in? The opportunity is right in front of me. It would be a waste not to take it. Whoosh, 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 one by one, the sages rushed over and blocked Chu Kuangren's way. It was obvious that they did not want him to enter the Imperial Palace. Heh, I told you guys that you guys are shameless, but you guys have really thrown away your pride. Chu Kuangren chuckled. In any case, I can't let you enter the Qian Imperial Palace. Do you think you can stop me? Chu Kuangren said indifferently. Taking a step forward, a terrifying Daoist rhyme swept out in all directions. Raising a hand, boundless spiritual energy gathered, and a vast Buddhist light manifested. The 1000-zhang tall ancient Buddha struck out with a palm. His first move was an emperor method. Facing this powerful attack, a saint's expression changed slightly, and he also punched out, but he was sent flying by this palm. F***ck, why does it seem like this guy's strength has increased again? The sage's expression changed slightly. Just one palm attack from Chu Kuangren and he could already feel his arm going numb. Chu Kuangren's strength was a little too terrifying. Don't tell me this guy is preparing to undergo the heavenly tribulation? I remember that it hasn't been long since he broke through to the utmost exalt realm. To think that he's going through his tribulation so soon. Isn't his rate of improvement a little too fast? If he were to become a saint, wouldn't that be disastrous? The surrounding sages were discussing. Chu Kuangren did not care. He looked around at the sages surrounding him and activated the Eye of Revelation to see through their identities and cultivation levels. They were all people from the unknown lands. Only they would think of stopping Chu Kuangren. Chu Kuangren was the biggest obstacle in their orthodoxy's fight for the emperor's opportunity. A sincere suggestion. Let's go together. Chu Kuangren said as he placed his hand on the hilt of his sword. The sages looked at each other. I don't think any of you can stop him. Why don't you come at him together? There's no need to care about face at this time. Black Willow Saint from Acheron Manor said. Hearing his words, the rest of the sages also nodded. Indeed, even a great sage would not be able to easily stop an opponent of Chu Kuangren's level. If they wanted to stop him from entering the imperial palace, they would have to go at him together. I can't believe that at such an old age, I have to join a bunch of sages to stop a junior, one of the sages said with a bitter smile. The others felt helpless too. The Qian Imperial Palace was originally prepared for the Sky Prides, so it was reasonable for them to enter and fight for it. However, Chu Kuangren was different. His strength was too strong and terrifying. If he entered, the other Sky Prides would not stand a chance. Hence, the sages had no choice but to join forces to stop him. Let's go. Black Willow Saint was the first to attack. He unleashed a palm attack, and his spiritual power surged to form a black skull. The air was suddenly filled with a deathly chill. Finger of Despair. A sage from the sacred palace of death also attacked. His finger attack was an emperor technique. The rest of the sages followed suit. Chu Kuangren unsheathed his descendant self-sword and activated his three great Daoist physiques. His ferocious qi, battle intent, and transcendental might erupted. A dazzling sword ray tore through the sky and earth. Several surges of energy collided. The violent energy formed a horrifying shockwave that spread. The shockwave hit everyone, and even Chu Kuangren was pushed back a few meters. Suddenly, he looked up into the sky. He saw a huge seal of mountains and rivers descending from the sky. That seal contained an incomparably majestic earth qi. It was the immovable Manor's emperor technique, the seal of mountains and rivers. Suppress him. High up in the sky, an old man roared. Chu Kuangren's ferocious qi swirled around his body and formed into a huge black avatar. Waves of battle roars echoed in the sky. The divine ferocious avatar smashed its fists into the sky. Terrifying ferocious qi surged out like a tidal wave, shaking the void. With a loud explosion, the seal of mountains and rivers was shattered. However, the other sages had already unleashed their attacks. Chu Kuangren controlled the divine ferocious avatar and continuously waved its fists in the air, unleashing surges of fist energies in all directions. The void exploded as all sorts of Daoist rhymes intertwined and collided. In the end, the divine ferocious avatar could no longer withstand the sage's attacks and shattered. Chu Kuangren himself was once again pushed back. Chu Kuangren's figure turned into a stream of light and dashed towards the imperial palace. Dream on. Humph, you want to break through our seal? Dream on. A few sages snorted and stopped Chu Kuangren. Chu Kuangren's speed was fast, but there were many sages who were proficient in speed as well, so they were not any slower than him. Boom, boom, sounds of explosions could be heard in the void. Chu Kuangren continued to wander in the void as if he was trying to find a way to enter the imperial palace. Unfortunately, the unknown land sage's defense was impenetrable. They did not give Chu Kuangren the chance to do so. After a series of intense battles, Chu Kuangren still could not break through. It's too difficult. There are more than 10 sages here, and some of them are even great sages. The rest are almost at the great sage level. It won't be easy for Chu Kuangren to break through their seal. That's right. Who else can break through unless they're a sage ruler? It's rare to see more than 10 sages teaming up against a sage. Chu Kuangren, you're amazing. I'm afraid the opportunity of fortune in the imperial palace doesn't belong to Chu Kuangren anymore. What a shame. If he could enter the imperial palace, the other sky prides, including the Empyrean walkers from the unknown lands, wouldn't stand a chance. The battle continued in the void. Chu Kuangren was surrounded by more than 10 sages, and he could not break through and enter the Qian Imperial Palace for a long time. Chu Kuangren, even you can't break through our seal and enter the Qian Imperial Palace. Just give up. One of the ethereal rapture sages laughed. Chapter 393. The ethereal rapture sage had a terrible impression of Chu Kuangren. Back then, he had taken away so many exquisite tier chalcedonies and even celestial cores that they could not wait to devour. The ethereal rapture sage was elated to see Chu Kuangren suffer. However, he was soon disappointed. That was because even in such a situation, he did not see the slightest hint of annoyance or displeasure on Chu Kuangren's face. That flawless face of his had always been calm. If one were to look closely, one could even see that the corner of Chu Kuangren's mouth was curled up into a nonchalant smile. This ****, the ethereal rapture sage was soon in a bad mood. Not only him, but the other sages also felt like they had punched a pile of cotton. They could not even feel the slightest bit of force. They clearly had the upper hand and successfully stopped Chu Kuangren from entering the Imperial Palace, but why did they feel like they were the ones at a disadvantage? When they looked at the surrounding cultivators' strange gazes, that feeling of frustration became even more obvious. They seemed to have understood something from the crowd's gazes. A dozen sages ganged up on a junior, yet they still had the gall to be proud? A dozen sages ganged up on a junior, yet they could not even hurt a hair on him. How could they call themselves sages? It doesn't matter. As long as we can stop Chu Kuangren from entering the Imperial Palace, we don't have to worry about anything else. Black Willow Sage said. As a demonic orthodoxy sage, his skin was much thicker than the other sages. He did not feel guilty at all about joining forces with the other sages to attack Chu Kuangren. Hey, didn't you guys notice anything? Chu Kuangren suddenly said. Hearing his words, everyone frowned. They did not know what he meant by that. Chu Kuangren shook his head when he saw their puzzled expressions. Then, he snapped his fingers. In an instant, a strange fluctuation appeared in the void. This fluctuation caused the sages present to be alarmed as they looked around cautiously. What's going on? Why is there such a fluctuation? Suddenly, lines of mysterious runes appeared in the void. Some looked like swords, some looked like flames, and some looked like beasts. All kinds of runes glowed brilliantly, looking extremely mysterious. That scene shocked all the sages present. Runes, why are there so many runes? This guy, when did he carve these symbols? Bastard, how did he do it? The sages exclaimed in shock. They never knew that Chu Kuangren knew runic techniques. Speaking of which, how did this fellow know the rune Dao? The sages were puzzled. The hundreds of thousands of onlookers were even more confused. Everyone, enjoy this hodgepodge of runes. Chu Kuangren smiled. As soon as he finished speaking, the various runes engraved in the void suddenly exploded, and all kinds of energy rushed towards the sages. The power of fire, the power of ice, the power of sword, the power of gravity. For a moment, the entire sky was overflowing with colorful lights, gorgeous and dazzling. The sages did not know that Chu Kuangren also knew runic Dao, so they were caught off guard and had to deal with the various runes in a flurry. Goodbye. Chu Kuangren did not continue to fight with these sages. Instead, he took this opportunity to fly towards the Imperial Palace. Dream on. The sacred palace of Death's sage roared and pointed a finger at Chu Kuangren's back. A horrifying amount of death chi converged and turned into a terrifying finger strength. Finger of despair. However, Chu Kuangren dashed towards the Imperial Palace without looking back. Just when that finger strength was about to hit Chu Kuangren, a golden rune appeared in the air and turned into a golden light barrier. With a loud explosion, the finger strength shattered the light barrier, but it also dissipated. It could not hurt Chu Kuangren at all. D*M*. The sacred palace of death's sage cursed. This B***starred has even set up a route to enter the imperial palace. He even set up runes along the way to prevent others from pursuing him. D*M*. How does he know runic Dao? Runic Dao was very mysterious. There were only a few cultivators in the entire firmament star who could cultivate runic Dao to a high level. How could Chu Kuangren have such a high level of runic Dao at such a young age? The crowd was puzzled. However, they could only watch as Chu Kuangren entered the imperial palace. D*M*. What are the Sky Prides going to do now? The sages looked at each other. Compared to Chu Kuangren, the Sky Prides in the imperial palace were like a flock of sheep. Now that they were like a tiger in a flock of sheep, who could stop them? Sigh, is this really fate? Is Chu Kuangren destined to become an emperor in this era? The Qian Imperial Palace. As the residence of an ancient emperor, this place had always been sealed in the void until today. Hence, the place did not look too shabby. On the contrary, it looked extremely glorious and majestic. Upon arriving at the imperial palace, Chu Kuangren immediately activated his treasure locating skill. All kinds of treasures and information were fed back to him. However, he frowned slightly. There are quite a lot of treasures, but most of them are sage-grade treasures. Compared to the serpent deity's collection, these things are not that valuable. They're not that useful to me either. Are there no emperor-grade treasures here? Chu Kuangren thought. An emperor-grade treasure was what he wanted the most. He then used his treasure locating skill to search for a while, but he still could not find any trace of an emperor-grade treasure. Vaguely, his treasure locating skill senses touched a strange barrier and was bounced back. He looked towards the center of the imperial palace. Oh, is it over there? After pondering for a while, Chu Kuangren began to move. The barrier that he sensed was actually a layer of sealing energy. Perhaps it was not the right time yet, so the sealed area had not appeared yet. Let's loot the other treasures first. Chu Kuangren thought to himself. Although these sage-grade treasures were not very useful to Chu Kuangren, they were still valuable cultivation resources. They would still be very useful to the Black Heaven sect. Inside the Qian Imperial Palace, a group of Sky Prides was gathered in a medicinal field. There were many supreme elixirs growing in this medicinal field. Even sage-grade supreme elixirs, which were extremely rare in the outside world, could be found here. Not to mention the other treasures in the Imperial Palace, just this medicinal field alone was enough to make 99% of the orthodoxies in Firmament Star go crazy. The Sky Prides at the scene stared at the supreme elixirs with fiery eyes. However, most of the Sky Prides did not dare to act rashly. That was because there were more than 10 Empyrean walkers gathered in the middle of the medicinal field. Just by standing there, they were enough to intimidate the crowd. What do you guys think about how we should distribute these supreme elixirs? Shui Zheng of the Ethereal Rapture asked. Pfft, how else can we distribute them? Whoever has the biggest fist will get the most. Xiao Lintian of the Heavenly Golden Palace sneered. Among the Sky Prides present, he was the strongest. Therefore, he was the most confident. Brother Xiao, you're very courageous indeed. However, can you single-handedly take on all of us? Ling Xiao said calmly. As soon as he said that, the other Empyrean walkers looked at Xiao Lintian with hostility. Xiao Lintian frowned and snorted coldly. Bullying the weak with numbers? Is this how you do things? Ling Xiao said, this is called joining forces to attack the strong. Pfft, Xiao Lintian snorted. Although he was not afraid of anyone at the scene in a one-on-one fight. However, it was still a difficult task to deal with so many Empyrean walkers at the same time. You're tuning in to the Unparalleled SwordWill YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.